Hey guys, I have a very exciting and very special announcement. Are you ready? Only in theaters. Memorial Day, May 25th, The Machine, the movie comes out. Only in theaters. The Machine. If you want information, go to themachine.movie. You can sign up to get updates. You can watch the trailer. They'll let you know when tickets go on sale or there are any promotions that are happening with the movie. But how exciting. I mean, Bert told this story so long ago on Rogan, and it's just become this amazing movie. So I hope you come watch it with us. We will definitely be there Memorial Day weekend, and I hope you will be too. So again, go to themachine.movie to sign up to get updates. Thank you so much for supporting. What an amazing journey. And oh, by the way, how crazy is this? May 25th was mine and Bert's first date 21 years ago. And May 25th is the date this movie is premiering. I can't believe that. That's so crazy. I think that's called Kismet. I don't know. I don't even really know what that word means. But anyway, go to themachine.movie and sign up to get updates and come watch the Machine movie with us in theaters. Thank you. This week's guest is someone I'd never met before. It's a great guy named Jeff Rinna. He is starting a new social media platform called Our Social Symbio, oursocialsymbio.com. And symbio is spelled SYMBIO. By the time this airs or drops, it will have launched. And this platform is about positivity, is about having a place to tell a story or interview a person about something really amazing that's happened in their life so that we have kind of a portal to share positivity. It's his answer to counterbalancing the negativity that's happening in a lot of social media. And I think it's amazing. It's very noble and it's an amazing effort. So I'm going to go on and post a story when it's launched. And I invite you to do the same. Again, it's oursocialsymbio.com. Jeff coincidentally has known Bert for a long time. And Jeff was just the nicest guy. What a nice person. So I hope you enjoy this episode where we talk about his new platform and storytelling and positivity and negativity and and all kinds of stuff. He breaks down some of my episodes and what he kind of pulled out of the last 15 or so episodes he watched. It was very interesting. So thank you, Jeff, for coming on. Check out oursocialsymbio.com and enjoy this episode.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
It's been
thanks for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I'm so honored to be with you on my first podcast because you'll see as we talk about this, you sort of embody what we're trying to do.
Oh,
and
thank you. That's very, very flattering. Thank you.
You bring out the best in everybody, and you see greatness in everybody.
I do. Yeah.
Your podcast guests have been, outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
It's not all celebrities or anything. It's like sometimes it's the normal people in your life, and you just bring out these stories in them that really resonate with, everybody that's listening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of what we're trying to do. So again, Our Social Symbio, which is kind of like the long name, if you were to use your full name, is because we have, the domains are either oursocialsymbio.com, oursymbio.com, socialsymbio.com. It may get into a nickname later, right? We may shorten the name, just like your full name. What is your full name, Leanne?
Kelly Leanne.
Kelly Leanne?
Yeah.
So Leanne's your middle name?
Yeah.
And then it was Kemp, and now it's Kreischer?
That's right.
So if you shorten your name, it would be the same thing.
It'd be KLK.
But I want to sort of start with its full name out there so people sort of get the gist right from the name.
Yeah.
Our Social Symbio, our social symbiosis, our coming together on social media.
Right.
Because of what's happening right now. And the whole idea came to me because I've always been a big people person.
Mm-hmm.
I always start, in fact, every meeting I have with this company, with my programmers, with my developers, with my graphic artists, with my designers, I always start the meetings with just a simple question. like, what'd your father do for a living?
Hmm.
Or when's your birthday?
Mm-hmm.
Just so that everything's about finding the story in others.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always ask that, when's your birthday?
August 20th.
August 20th. Because I want to make birthday's really on my mind right now because my brother's birthday is today. Happy birthday, Chris. And my daughter's birthday is tomorrow.
No way.
Yeah,
How's your daughter?
Valentina. She's going to be 4.
Beautiful name.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is she your only?
Yeah, but we have one on the way.
No way.
Yeah.
How exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It is. That's great.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Get ready. Two is a divide and conquer.
I heard it's 10 times as hard.
Two's like having 4. But I heard three's like having 3. But two's like having 4. I don't know why. Anyway.
I got to tell you,
but
I've heard you talk about these topics before, and they're interesting topics. You know, like one was really hard. My wife and I are both, full-time workers, and we did the whole infertility drama, and I went back and listened to your podcast number 60 about infertility just for that reason, because I could relate so much to it. And I did want to ask right away if either of those 2 women, do you know if they ended up having any children or yet?
Yes.
Awesome.
So, I'm blanking on her name. Not Sarah.
Not Sarah. The other was Jen.
Jen, thank you. I kept going, Lisa. And I know her name's not Lisa.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. Jen had a baby. She had a baby with a surrogate. Yes, she did.
Amazing.
Yes, she did.
That's so great.
Yeah, it's very great. I should have her back on, actually. I'm glad you brought that up to see how she feels and how that process was for her and what that was like. I hadn't thought about that. Good idea. Because what a great podcast that was. I felt like I learned the thing about life to me is that you should always be learning, right? Curiosity about other people or curiosity, it kind of can feed the curiosity you have for yourself and vice versa. Curious about myself. How can I learn from you, about myself also? It all works together.
I mean, tremendously so. What you put out comes back.
Completely.
So huge. And I always knew this, because my whole life I've been a people person, and my superpower is I'm lucky enough to be liked by both sides of the tracks. And that's kind of generalized, but even in high school, like I could hang out with the guys down in the automotive wing.
Yep.
I could hang out with the jocks. I could hang out with the smart kids.
Yeah.
I could hang out with anybody. And shout out to my my high school in Saline, Michigan. And I always just loved everybody. I could always find something good in anybody. And so when we really started seeing the polarization forming in this country for a lot of reasons, it's complex times. Whether it's climate change or healthcare or the divides between the haves and the have-nots. So many things are happening in the whole world in general, but specifically this country, which is what really bothers me, because I'm just always been very, very grateful to have been born in the United States, the greatest country in the world, the greatest, gathering of people in the history of the planet.
Yeah, I agree.
The greatest experiment in the history of this planet is the United States. And I just saw it ripping itself apart. And, with all the complexities of the world and then social media magnifying that, it just looked like, we're broken.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not something that's going to fix itself.
No, it's not. But it's so hard because you feel like you need to dump the junk drawer out. Somehow something needs to overturn everybody somehow so that we can sort out that, hey, we're all kind of the same. You know what I mean? We're all kind of the same. We're all put our pants on the same way every day. I hate the polarization too. I'm really patriotic. I love the 4th of July. I love Memorial Day, Veterans Day, all these days where we celebrate the things that, like, almost the mechanics of being American, right? The Declaration of Independence is a mechanical piece of being American. And everybody's like, you fly a flag? I don't have a flag out now, but I'm like, yeah, why don't you fly an American flag? I don't understand why the American flag has become a negative thing anywhere on this continent, like anywhere. I don't get it. I don't know why does that have to be our issue? It's so stupid.
Yeah.
It's so waste of time.
So so many things have become us versus them type issue.
Totally. Across the board, everywhere.
And what you're saying is everybody puts their pants on the same way. I mean, everybody has stories of growing up. Everybody has stories of adolescence. Everybody has stories of having kids. Everybody has stories about losing a parent. Everybody has stories about adopting a dog. So many really great bonding stories that we're not starting with. We're starting with who are you voting for?
The drama.
We're starting with the things that mean the least.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not here to denigrate other forms of social media or disparage them. They're a lot of, you know, what they do is good. You know, it's been great to rekindle relationships with old high school friends.
Totally.
Or you know, they're big broadcast systems. So it's great to make an announcement about the baby or make an announcement here or there, do that type of thing. But there's just obviously it's just gone out of balance.
Yeah.
It's gone out of balance. I think the thing I think about that, I mean, I don't need to go into too many details for you to believe that. Everybody knows that, you know, that social media is you see certain people, maybe their insecurity showing on social media or their you know, fake outputs or whatever it is. And the thing is, for me, it was, you know, those systems are going to be here forever, but let's start an alternative system. Let's start alternative systems, multiple,
totally,
that can bring out the best in people. So if I start a system where, you know, I can get people to start talking about those common, beautiful stories that we all share, then that would bond us as people. So at first it was like, I just want to bring out people's best stories, but then it evolved into let's incentivize people to interview each other for their best stories. Then you have a two-person connection, a direct connection between people. Everybody in social media universe sees that connection. So before you know it, you're having a great conversation or a great interview. You know, when I say interview, it really is about one question at a time.
Right.
And it's text-based right now. It's not audio or video yet. In phase one. I'll get to that in a minute. But so you would be able to shoot a question. You would be able to, maybe a question comes to, you know, to your mind. You'd be able to shoot a question to a friend. You know, I saw this question that Leanne asked on her podcast about infertility. And I know you have a great story about that. Julie, can you share that? Now Julie's sharing that. She's endeared to you for asking that question. You're endeared to her for answering that question. Everybody that sees you goes, geez, last time I saw Leanne and Julie, they were fighting about politics online. You know, and but now they're like really coming together, and everybody witnesses that. Sorry to use that example because you don't fight with anybody. That's what I love about you.
I try not to.
But you know, it's just a way to incentivize people to sort of again concentrate on all these ways that we're similar to each other. And there's so many. There's thousands. When I see a person, I don't see a stranger or somebody I know. I see a book of stories.
Yeah.
And I see chapters, you know, growing up, adolescence, high school, college, marriage, everything, depression, so many things. And those stories really should be celebrated and shared. And if we can get each other to pull those out of each other, again, it's like almost like a twofer. Because you're not only sharing those stories, but now the person that got that story out of you is part of the story.
They are incentivized to reach out for more stories from other people.
Yeah, and so you don't have to be a and I love that you're a big voracious reader and a writer from what I heard. And you know, because you don't have to be the person that does all the writing. Maybe you fall into a place where you just love interviewing people. Right. And you just love popping questions off all across your emails and other social networks, popping questions around and getting people to answer stories. And that's what you get high on, is bringing out the best in others. Right. Maybe, you know, you're the type of person that loves to share your story. And so then you're also love to write your story and be interviewed yourself. Either way, it didn't never seem too hard for me to sort of put this together. Right. Right. Because the great thing about online content is there's instantaneous revenue. You know, with these demand side platforms is what we call them in the ad business, trading desks, ad networks, Google ads. You know, if you produce a piece of online content right away, instantaneously, they can get the best dollar for that piece of content and get the right person to see that piece of content, right? Who's interested in infertility, and the advertiser who might be related, and they can in a millisecond, they can say, I want that piece of content, and put their ad on it with the eyeballs of this person. Right. Now there's, our ad models kind of go beyond that to where we have even a different sort of take on it. So where maybe we're going to get brands to have personal sponsorships of people, which means sort of like, I know when I've listened to your podcast a lot, and there's a lot of, I've written down questions for like your last 15 podcasts.
Oh my gosh.
Just to show you like how much great topics and questions your podcast is putting out in the world already.
Wow.
So, like you talked about Bowden, Georgia. So what if Coca-Cola says, I want, we're gonna sponsor 15 towns in Georgia to interview 15 towns in 15 other states.
Mm-hmm.
So people from Bowden interview people from Saline, Michigan. Mm-hmm. People from another part of Georgia interview somebody from Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So now and you can automatically get hand raisers. I'll be the interviewer. I love this question. And then the other person in Michigan is like, I have a story for that. You can not instantaneously, but you can connect these people. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, you're not looking down at Georgia or Alabama and saying, those aren't good people.
Yeah, right.
They voted for so-and-so.
Right.
Now you're connecting people. It could get huge one day where, you could get people interviewing people from other countries, mm-hmm. people with certain insecurities, interviewing people that are against those topics, or, really bringing people together to sort of learn that we're all just people. And you never, I think about, I'm kind of backtracking here, but I think about my buddies from Michigan, my buddies from my small town, and they lean a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. And then you got my college buddies that lean a certain way, my LA friends that lean a certain way, and they seem to be, not on the same wavelength.
Sure.
But nobody would pull over for you if you had a flat tire more than my buddies from my hometown.
Yeah, right.
My small, so why are we thinking again that a certain person, just because of the way the groups we've fallen into, aren't as valuable as other people or aren't on the same wavelength as us? We can get these people together in more fundamental core ways from our life, and then the littler things won't mean so much.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about a Facebook sized social network. Even if we got 1 million people to start asking people questions, mm-hmm. the reverberations would be like hundreds of millions of people would see these bonds, mm-hmm. and we would see such a great change, at least some change, mm-hmm. because what's happening right now is just, to me, it's unacceptable. And it's like it's a bittersweet conversation to come in here and have to talk about the polarization of this country, the increased suicide rates, the increased anxiety we're seeing in our kids.
Depression.
Family members not going to Thanksgiving with each other.
Because they don't want to talk politics.
And all that stuff. I mean, it's really sad to see that. And it's a daunting challenge, because it's such a big challenge that I know you felt it. I felt it. Anybody I talk to, you don't really have to go too deep. They've felt what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And now, so the question is, well, Jeff, that's such a big problem. How are you going to do anything about it? Well, yeah, that is daunting task, but it's our task.
Yeah.
The sweet part of this bittersweet equation is this is our problem to solve. This is our Martin Luther King moment. This is our Gandhi moment.
For your business or for our generation?
Our generation.
Yeah, I think it might be.
And I think Gen X is going to lead the way. Yeah. And I've always been, as a Gen Xer, I've always been sort of like confused as to why we were like kind of like this forgotten, missing, went right from baby boomers to millennials as to who's like, running culture, or not running culture, but helping, take culture one way or another. And I always felt like Gen X, we're the most powerful, not more powerful than any other, but we're the most balanced. Mm-hmm. We've seen before computers. We've seen before cell phones. Mm-hmm. We've seen before social media. We've seen before the internet. So we sort of know how great it was before. We didn't really know how great it was before and how great it is after.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about like really knowing that we have problems, how many times have you had this toast with your friends? Here's to not having cell phones when we were growing up. Here's to not having social media when we were growing up.
Yeah.
Just the fact that that's like a normal toast nowadays should say to us, there's some really good things about today.
Totally.
But there's some really crazy
It's just
things
out
going.
of balance, don't you think?
It's really out of
It's
balance.
out of balance. That's the problem. But that's the problem with, our whole culture has gotten into extremes in so many ways, eating the way we eat, the way we grow food. My grandparents raised cattle for beef, and they were organic, but no one called it organic. They just didn't give them antibiotics. So because he didn't believe in that much. I think he did if a cow was really sick and absolutely had to have it. But other than that, he had knowledge and experience to be able to treat an animal on his farm in a natural way, because that's the way you did it. There wasn't all these chemicals and all this technology that we have that benefit us now, especially in areas of medicine. Sometimes it's amazing and life-saving, and sometimes it's too much. That's the problem, is sometimes all of this is too much. I think too, we've gotten so far away from, I'm not religious, but church life, not religious life, but church life provides a community. When you grow up in a smaller community, especially, or even a larger one, it provides you with like structure and a focus and a group of people who you are mostly like-minded, that are trustworthy for the most part. And I don't know that our world presents that in the same massive way it did before. It does in pockets and small ways, but everybody you knew, like all my grandparents' generation, everybody went to church, some capacity, and some people would go to church to nap. But they'd show up, and then they knew everybody in the building. You know what I mean? Well, I don't think we have that anymore. It's shifted to social media, which you don't really know anybody. It's so very surface. And so I don't think kids understand how to grow depth. They haven't been forced to grow depth. It sucks to sit in a hot Southern Baptist church with no air conditioning for an hour and listen to a man scream and yell and sweat and not understand what he's saying, and have to sit there and not do something else. That's the way it was when I was a kid. When you went to church, you sat there and you listened and you behaved, and it didn't matter. And we don't ask our kids to do that now. Kids now take an iPad with them to church and are distracted so that they can be quiet. So, but there's a depth to having to have that kind of focus and discipline as you grow up. I don't know. Church is something that comes back to me a lot. I am not religious. I don't go to church now, but I just think that as a whole community, church has really gone down in attendance. And that I don't think that is a coincidence that all these other problems are happening, because, you're supposed to love thy neighbor, even if thy neighbor voted differently than you did. Yep. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a basic rule of life that no one hears on a regular basis.
Yep.
No, that's not fed. It's exactly what you're saying. What we're fed is, you need a Brazilian butt lift to be beautiful, or you need to drive this car to be hot, or, unless you can do this backflip, triple somersault, cool dance move, no one's going to watch your TikTok. I don't get it.
Food for thought. I always think about that. Food for thought. The food we're eating that generates our thought and our emotions and our love is just junk food right now.
You're right. It's junk food. I'm guilty of it too. I'll spend 15 minutes on Instagram and go, snap out of it. What are you doing? And I'm just watching. Now, what I watch on Instagram is not evil. It's like cat videos,
Yep.
Stupid stuff like that. But the evil's out there. And, that's scary when you have kids and everything's. We were at someone's house the other day. They have a 5-year-old who had an iPad, because we were having a adult conversation. The kid doesn't stay all day long on the iPad, but for this moment, they gave him the iPad so he could be distracted in this room full of adults while we were talking. And Bert looked over his shoulder and went, "What is he watching? I don't think this is appropriate for him. He shouldn't be watching this. It's like Scary Granny or something, where it's kind of scary." But he can access all of that. I mean, obviously a parent can put controls on their device, but in this instance, there weren't any. And he got into some scary place like that, like 2 minutes. So crazy.
I'm scared out of my mind with a 4-year-old and a new, almost a newborn.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's not going away.
No.
We can't just, sit around and say, hey, there's a huge problem. Maybe it'll just go away.
Mm.
The only thing we can do is just, I think, add counterbalances to everything. And that's, again, offering alternatives that can incentivize people to do more fulfilling things.
Right.
Talk about more fulfilling things. Read more fulfilling content. Listen to more fulfilling content. Enrich your food for thought.
Yeah, enrich your through food. Yeah, I like that.
And so, a lot of times people ask me, who's this for? I say, obviously, it could be any generation. I think, obviously, baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y will be the easier adapters. The young kids, they love everything in just like small video segments.
Mm-hmm.
But because there's a monetary part of this where you get paid for being an interviewer or an interviewee, and then also just, I think, no one's ever written a memoir and regretted it.
Probably very true. Yes.
Just to have it down, just to have your most important stories down as an artifact of your life. To me, it's, I don't want to get too morbid, but to me, it was always crazy that so many of us go to our deathbeds and a stranger down at the local newspaper writes your last story.
Yeah, right.
Why wouldn't we all have living obituaries, where it's already written or it's recorded? And so if anything happens to me, God forbid, because life could change in a second, you guys will know how I really felt and, how much I'm going to miss you guys and all that stuff.
Right.
So I think however we can, whether it's monetarily or socially, or again, to me, it's not, outlandish to think that pockets of interviewers will pop up all over the place. Little Barbara Walters of the high school, little Barbara Walters of this small town. People will start to, and again, that's why I'm sort of wanting to talk to podcasters. This is a new renaissance of interviewers. It's like this massive, amazing renaissance of interviewers.
You mean podcasters?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
And I want to talk to you about, what the joy it brings you to interview somebody, the connection, instantaneous connection it brings you. Maybe a guest you had on that you thought was like, oh, this person is, very different from me. And then by the end of it, you're like, wow. Like the connection we have. Or when I've heard you interview your daughters, I was like, if everybody had a platform to do that, it doesn't need to be podcast platform,
right?
But maybe it's just forwarding them a question. What'd you think when we first sent you to summer camp?
Yeah.
What
do you want for Christmas? I've been trying to get that one answered for a month.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Just all these great memories that should be in our books of life.
Yeah.
And so I just think that the younger generations will also adapt to it and learn from us, hopefully, how great it is to be about others.
Yeah.
If you're all about yourself, all the time, self-serving media, social media platforms, narcissism, you're not going to get, everybody's so crazy about recognition these days. You're going to get so much more recognition being about others. You're a perfect case study of that. You're gaining popularity and so much presence, not only from what you and Bert have built, but from this amazing podcast that you've started. And it's all about being about others.
Well, that's for sure. I feel like if there's a hole in your heart, if you're sad or empty, the way to fill it doesn't usually come from you. It comes from giving. It's all from giving. When you give, that hole fills up. And it's really hard. I don't know why it's hard for people to learn that. I was raised that way, not with those words, but that's what I observed in my dad's family. Both his parents and all their families were full of people who were community focused and other focused, teachers, nurses, bus drivers. They all were very other focused. And that's just how I grew up. From his side, my mom's side was not so much that way, but if you could just try it, even if telling a story like you're talking about, or interviewing someone and getting someone's story and really listening is so fulfilling. It is way more fulfilling than telling a story, and that's true of volunteerism. That's true of philanthropy. When you give. And you give because you want to give, because you believe. There's a charitable institution here where we live for homelessness that we give to every year because I love what they do. And I can't do what they do. And the person who runs it loves it so much. It's called Hope of the Valley. And I love them. I think they are killing it in a system that is impossible to fix. They are really making some big strides and big swings. And I don't have the time or the capacity to roll up my sleeves and get in the dirt with them, but I do have the ability to give. We always do their turkey trot every year and raise money. And I always write a check for charity at the end of the year for that institution. And by the way, giving could be $20. I'm not talking about millions of dollars. That $20 that you take and decide to give to something you believe in instead of buying, 5 Starbucks changes how you feel. It changes how you see yourself even. And it changes that little hole in your heart that you can't seem to fill. And I wish they taught this in high school, because it really is just the truth. It's almost just a fact. Giving is what fills you up. It just does. So a platform like yours, where you could have a back and forth with someone that's from the space of curiosity and learning, because as I've said a million times, I'm talking to you in hopes that I learn something, because that's what I want every day, is to learn. And if I'm learning, then anyone who's listening should be learning too, or could be learning too. Not should, but could be. And isn't that how you affect change in the world? It's not in a vacuum.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And instead of giving money, you can also just give your curiosity.
Yes, you could. Exactly.
I mean, if we could learn, one story from every homeless person, every person.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would be amazing.
And guess what? Some professional might be listening to those stories and go, there's a thread, A, B, C. They're all together. Let's look at this from a different perspective. So whatever that interviewer or interviewers gave to the platform you're talking about, could like snowball into other bigger things that can happen, because it's a big undertaking to say, I'm going to interview every homeless person as a single person. But if you put a challenge up and you say, everybody go out, find someone who's homeless and ask them these 5 questions. How powerful is that? That would be powerful. I would do that.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this week's episode of Wife of the Party is sponsored by DocaTot. I don't know if you're familiar with this company, but they make amazing items for babies and moms and toddlers. They make the most luxurious and absorbent diaper out there. It feels like a cashmere diaper and is super absorbent. So, it takes the moisture away from your baby's skin, and you don't have to like immediately change the diaper. It's going to leak, because it does a great job absorbing, and it's so soft and comfy on their little tushy tushes. They also make great sleep rompers so that you can snap on and snap off and have your baby nap comfortably and snuggly. They make something called La Maman Wedge, which is a nursing pillow. I nursed both my kids, and the pillow was not actually as supportive as I would have thought, where I had to like get the pillow positioned on the arm of a chair so that it was the right height. La Maman is just the perfect fit for a nursing pillow. And it comes in great decorative prints so it can match your household decor. Mine was like Pepto-Bismol pink. I mean, it came in like Pepto pink, neon green, or baby blue. And those were my options. But DocaTot makes, like your kids, makes nursing just part of your household and part of your life. So it just kind of, you can choose a pattern that will just blend in to your style and decor. They also make something new called the Cosset Pillow. This is a pillow for pregnant women or for women in postpartum, or maybe for anybody. It's a pillow that makes sleeping just more supported and comfortable. I know when you're pregnant, it's just impossible to get comfortable. And even after you have a baby, it's really hard. So having a pillow that puts the right support in the right place just makes everything better. I would imagine it would make your sleep better, which makes your recovery better, which makes you a better mom. I think DocaTot is an amazing company that has a lot to offer new moms and babies and toddlers. Babies, mamas, and gift givers, this is the best brand you can buy for the precious child and mom you love the most. For a limited time, get 15% off at DocaTot.com with the code WIFE. That's 15% off with the code WIFE at DocaTot.com. Parenting is hard, but DocaTot makes it easier. Let me spell it for you just in case so you know for sure you have it right. Doc, D-O-C-K, A-Tot, T-O-T, DocaTot.com, and the code WIFE gets you 15% off. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you have listened to my podcast at all, you know that I am in therapy, that I am a huge believer that therapy can help you change your life, grow, learn, be a better person for yourself, be a better person for others. Therapy doesn't have to be for you what it is for me. Sometimes we're having a hard time in this moment of life and need some help. I have friends who ask me about therapy, my experience in therapy, and I say, sometimes your car needs a repair that you are not qualified to handle. So you take it to a mechanic. Well, sometimes things in your life need support that you're maybe not qualified or your friends and family aren't qualified to handle. Something like BetterHelp would be the perfect place to go. So many resources available for you there. And getting support is so empowering. Seeking out someone who has more information than you do is a very strong choice. And BetterHelp is a great place to turn to. If you feel like you need someone to talk to, if you're confused about decisions to be made, if you've lost a loved one, if you had a breakup, if you hate your job and you want a new job, if you have a new job and it terrifies you, if you're going to college, if you're graduating college, if you're pregnant, if you've lost a baby, if you had a new baby, if you just got married. I mean, I just have to keep going on and on. Finding an in-person therapist is so difficult. You can never make time to drive there, drive back. Sometimes that's really difficult. Sometimes it's just hard to find someone in your town. I know sometimes in your own hometown, there may either be no therapists available or there may be so few that they're completely booked up. Everyone should have easy access to help like BetterHelp. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/wife today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, BetterHelp, HELP.com/wife.
I think about with AI and AR. Okay, so artificial intelligence is AI. Our augmented reality is AR, right? AR is, the most, the easiest example is when they came out the Google glasses. It puts a lens over the real world, right? So you're walking around with your Google glasses and it may say, this house is a historic house built in 1853, just gives you information over a real life lens. What if we had that lens where anybody you saw, it gave you maybe a couple keywords as to the stories of their lives.
Right.
Like love of Corvettes, love of planting roses. Also has a grandfather that did what your grandfather did.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is coming for sure.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, right? Because right now, if you walk into a room of strangers, all you see is a room of strangers, a bar, a restaurant. You just see a bunch of strangers. Nothing usually happens unless you're a big boisterous person like your husband. But if you walked into that same room with AR one day, where again you could see, oh, this person's got your same birthday. This person's also got a daughter named this. This person drives loves the same type of car you love, or also has a rose garden that they live for, or this or that. Boy, now we're talking about opening up that experience completely.
Yeah, right. Totally, yeah.
And that's coming. So for sure. So I also think about my company as being one of the originators of collecting that information. So we're going to start collecting that information, people's most important stories. The world just isn't tolerating each other anymore, which is so scary. We are in a cold civil war, which means we're opposed to, there's people so opposed to the other side that they're willing to kill
Yeah.
You know, they're willing to destruct. They're willing to do things, and it's going to happen more and more as we see it. I mean, just the fact, I hate, again, to go into these things, but school shootings boggles my mind that somebody could be that mentally deranged to go after our most innocent, precious people on earth, right? So we have to do something about this. And so it was like, you know, it's time. It's time to do this. Nobody else is doing it. I'm Gen X. You know, let's try and do this. You know,
What were you doing before?
advertising, always in content, producing content, monetizing content. You know, I met the reason why I found out about you is a long story that I'll try and shorten it. Back in the year 2000, after I graduated from film school from the University of Michigan, I had some University of Michigan buddies that were going down to start a new company in North Carolina, a startup company that was like YouTube before YouTube, right before YouTube. And there was a bunch of people there that were from Florida State, and they knew your husband. And so they introduced me. I even met Bert in the year 2000 in the office, just said hi to him. He went and filmed something for us down in Cancun. And then one of his, I got to shout out my Bert's buddies that are my great friends, Hutch. Do you know Josh?
Oh, yeah.
Josh and Ange?
I do.
They're the best, sweetest
They are.
people.
They are lovely human beings.
Yeah,
Aw.
Josh was in my wedding.
Oh, no way.
He stood in my wedding along with Jay Doty, who was the fraternity brother of Bert's. And then, you know, Keith Hemstreet.
Oh, yeah.
Obi.
I love Keith and Heidi.
Yeah, the best.
Yeah. I've never met Obi, but I know who he is.
Oh, yeah. He's so cool. And Obi is actually the one that, not to go too much into this, but the real way that I became a fan of Bert was, you know, I met him and everything, but it was just in passing. We were busy. We were working. And then Obi said, I got to go to New York City and film my buddy at a comedy show. And I said, okay, no worries, because I was running the production department. Came back with the footage, and it was Bert's stand-up. So funny. I was dying laughing. It was like the Matrix dance routine.
Yeah.
And the getting on a bus with Sebastian, who I didn't know. That's an interesting name, but, you know, Sebastian Maniscalco. You know, it seems makes a lot of sense now. But I was just like, oh, God, he's funny. And so then I started like just kind of, you know, on the TV shows, I would see him and whatnot. And then I would listen to the Bert cast. And then when you came on the Bert cast, I was like, God, she's like almost, you know, like she's the rock behind this man, and so diverse, and so from a small town in Georgia, but, you know, big city culture, New York City, LA, embracing big city culture, but has those small town values. I was like, this is just like the perfect person to talk to about this idea. So I've known about Bert and watched his and your journey for a long, long time. Again, with my friends from Florida State, and so it's been great to see, you know, how your podcast also sort of were a big inspiration from it, because as I was coming up with the idea, you know, and I listened to the Bert cast, he would always intro the Bert cast with, now my friend so-and-so, my friend so-and-so. And I was like, right there is proof positive that if you interview somebody, they're going to be your friend.
Right.
You know, no doubt about it.
Right.
Just like learning about them, questioning them. Again, they feel endeared to you. You feel endeared to them. I'm like, this works. Podcasters are proving it. There's so many great podcasters out there, from the Brene Browns to the Mark Marons to everybody that's just doing such great work. And their audiences, as an audience member myself, I know how engaged I am with the topics, and I know how much I want to contribute.
Sure.
I'm like, I want to, you know, I'd love to tell my story at this point. So if I could get sort of like piggyback on some of that engagement of podcast audiences, and again, the podcaster splits the revenue with their audiences, you know, and everybody is much better for it, right? The podcast makes a little bit of side ancillary income. Their audience members are endeared to them for bringing them into the conversation, endeared to them for giving them a little pocket change. Maybe even if, you know, if the content that's produced from some of those questions of the audience can come back with some amazing stories for the podcasters to talk about in future podcasts, which then would bring their audiences back to listen. Like, oh, I wonder if Leanne's going to talk about my story that I submitted.
Right.
So to me, it was just like, God, the interview process is this amazing bonding process, bringing us back to what really matters in our lives. There's this amazing renaissance of interviewers out there right now, maybe we can start a site, a network, a platform, which engages all that, circles it all together, and actually gets this job done
Right.
in one way or another.
Right.
Because again, I just couldn't sit around and watch this country go down the tubes and watch these kids. And when 2 young kids myself, one on the way, one here, to just sit there and, watch them get into this chaotic frenzy of anxiety and just self-serving world that we're in right now it was destroying me.
Yeah.
So it's like a time to put it out there, time to put it out there in the world, time to see who wants to come along for the journey. Again, there's so many cool exercises we could do with small towns interviewing other towns, certain people that maybe are Islamic phobic, interviewing people of the Islamic faith, people interviewing homeless people, kids interviewing grandparents. We could set out challenges left and right, and as the thing builds, really bring together people that you never thought would have been brought together.
So I'm gonna be what do you call it? The Not Negative Nelly, but I'm gonna ask some like contrarian questions.
Sure.
How about that? What if some not well-intentioned people show up and start doing some not well-intentioned stories? What do you do about that?
Okay, so I mean, again, as we build a full team of really expert people to flush these ideas out, there'll be better answers. But my initial answer to that is you have a report inappropriate button on the site where you can report inappropriate. And if enough people report something as inappropriate, then the story goes and just lives on that person who did the inappropriate thing, lives on their page.
Got it.
It's not on Leanne's page anymore. It's not on Jeff's page anymore. It's not in the...
So you have to seek it out.
I mean, if you went to this negative person's page, you could do whatever. I mean, we could get into, more policing and all this stuff. I think, Twitter's dealing with that. Everybody's dealing with that right now. But for me, if it just goes and lives on this person's page where no one's being directed to that page,
right,
you would have to go to that person's page to see that negativity.
Right.
You would not see it anywhere else in the network.
Right.
So, I mean, right there, I think that's just a decent solution.
Right.
The fact that the whole mission is to bring out the best in people, I think it's going to dissuade a lot of people from trying to just jump in there and be that little devil.
I would love to think that. I think I have the best listeners on the planet. I have everybody who comments on my stuff is lovely. It's very rare that I get a troll or anybody super negative. It's just not my energy. To your point, that I don't draw that people who are in that space don't seek me out. And thank God I haven't gotten targeted by somebody with ill intentions. But I know in looking at Bert's comments and other people who are a little more, out there, I guess, there are people out there who are just not well intentioned. And it's hard. I believe in free speech. I like your answer that you would just move it over here, not say you're off, you're out. We'll just put you over here because there is a place for people that are shitty. The reason someone's a troll or someone did put a comment on mine. Oh, this the other day. And they make me laugh and they make me really sad. Someone commented on one of my things, something to the effect of, I don't know how Bert lives with this woman, talking about me. And I was like, but how do you know? So you must have watched what I did.
Yeah.
So clearly you're watching me. So maybe there's part of you that likes it, but doesn't want to admit it. Maybe the part of you that likes me and thinks you couldn't have someone, a friend or a spouse like me, or maybe you're jealous of my relationship with Bird, or this is not about me. There's no way. And then why would you sit here and watch a whole episode on YouTube and your comment be, how does he live with her? Well, I think it's so sad that person is just unhappy and unsure where to place the blame, so to speak, for that unhappiness. And I think that happens a lot in social media with a lot of people, just attacking each other because they don't know how to kind of turn the mirror around and figure out why they're unhappy. One of the biggest questions I asked myself when I was younger was, why are you so unhappy? And to ask that question and not be afraid to answer it is life-changing. And I hope that for everybody that has the inclination to leave a shitty comment on someone's page or on someone's, conversation online, to just ask, what's your motive? Why? You're just spraying negativity. What does that do for you?
Hurt people hurt people.
No, yeah, for no reason. What does it do for you?
They're hurt. So the only thing they can do is
hurt others.
Hurt others.
And guess what? It makes you feel more hurt because it hurts your heart when you hurt people.
Yeah. Now imagine that hurt person that said that comment, wrote that comment. Imagine if they were taken off guard one day and somebody asked them, well, I heard your mom was a teacher. How did that impact your life? And they write a little something about that. Or I heard, that you caught this record-setting fish when you were a child in this contest.
Yeah.
And they say, yeah, I did. And I write about it and put my picture up there. Now they're not so hurt.
Yeah.
So we can't be afraid of like the negative people ruining what the good things we're trying to do.
Yeah, I know. I'm not afraid of that at all. Yeah. But they're out there.
Yeah, they'll be out there.
They show up.
They'll be out there. And again, if their negative material is just left on their homepage, their profile page.
Yeah.
Everybody has a profile page.
Yeah.
And so if I ask a question, their story's on my page and it's on their profile page.
Right.
And if it's inappropriate, it gets deleted from my page and it just sits on their page. And the only way people can get to it is to go to that person. And if, again, no one's going to go to that person's page if they're a negative person.
Right.
And then there's, future tools that we can put in place, dashboards. Everybody will have a dashboard.
So what does this platform look like tomorrow, as of tomorrow? Because did you say you're launching tomorrow?
I'm launching, yeah. I mean, I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but it's live right now. It's just being migrated to the correct domain. I have it on a hidden domain.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm launching it to the correct domain this week.
Oh, that's exciting.
It takes about a week to push everything over.
Yeah.
For the developers to do that. But I'll show it to you, especially I got my computer or whatever. I can show it to you afterwards, no problem.
Okay.
It's really cool. It's just, it's picture and text based for now. But there is like a 3 buttons. If you find a question you like, you have 3 buttons. One is write, so you can write your story and add pictures. Record, which is not in function yet, where you can record a story.
Voice recording.
Or interview, where you could forward that question to another and then even maybe in like a Zoom-like video chat, interview somebody live.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And then we'll have dedicated mobile apps that are even more streamlined, because to put all this on a phone, you squeeze it down onto a phone is like so hard.
Yeah.
That's why mobile apps are so expensive.
Right.
And you have to have a different mobile app for every device. And it's just really complicated. We sort of have a plan and we have the designs and everything. But until we get the next phase of investment, we're going to keep it text-based and sort of laptop-based. You can get to it on your phone, but it just doesn't look as good as it does on your desktop. And to me, at first, I was like, oh, that's too bad. That you need another $250,000 to make it work on the phones. But at the same time, then I had this revelation. Well, this is going to provide us, just having it sort of like more laptop-based, text-based, is going to give us really good insight as to who the people are we want to take along for the journey.
Right.
The people we want to bring on board as editors. Mm-hmm. The people we want to bring on board as dedicated interviewers. Mm-hmm. The people, these are the people that are willing to sit down on a Sunday night at their desk with a candle and a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And start writing out questions.
Yeah.
And turn off the TV.
Yeah.
The times suck. Which I'm guilty of social media. I'm guilty of TV. I don't mean to disparage any of this stuff. I'm just saying it's out of balance right now.
Yeah, it's out of balance.
If we got into a balance where, like there was a time of the week where you sat down and wrote down a couple of your stories of your, from your life, or asked a couple friends their stories from their lives, by the end of the year, by the end of 5 years, by the end of 10 years, you'll have a book of stories.
Totally.
And you'll be so happy and so relieved that as you start to worry about when it's all over, will I be remembered? Yeah, you're going to be remembered.
Right.
Now. You don't have to worry about the guy down at the local newspaper writing your story.
Right.
You're taken care of.
Right.
And your kids will know who you are, and your kids will be so happy that you did this. So
it would be cool to do that as like a family pod.
Yeah.
I a long time ago, I wrote 25 questions for everyone in my family, and I voice recorded them. This was years ago. And I typed them all up and put it in a binder and then gave it to everybody for Christmas, because I wanted my grandparents to answer, who was your first boyfriend? Who was your first kiss? Just simple questions like that you don't usually talk to your grandparents about. But that question would spark like a large conversation about whatever the question was. Where was you born? My mother was born like in a cabin in a field, like in a pasture.
Wow.
And so she didn't have a birth certificate because they didn't do that in rural Georgia back in those days. So I didn't know that. She told me this whole story about when she was born and what happened. And it was just 25 questions. All I did was sit down and write 25 questions that every person in my family could answer, right? So what was your first car? Not everybody could answer that question. But, if that's what your family's interested in, you can ask that. But that would be cool to do as a pod because you're right. Over time, as you keep adding to that little pod of stories, you have a book, you have a memoir.
You did what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to do it for everybody.
Well, I did it very analog.
Yeah.
It was very analog.
But it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You're just recording these precious moments and these precious stories from the people in your life because it helps you, it helps your heart, it helps their heart. You're glad it's taken care of, it's done, it's out of the way. You have this, you learn from it, they learn from it. You're more bonded. I mean, you're ahead of the game, Leanne, for sure. You were doing what I'm trying to do a long time ago then.
Well, it wasn't for abroad. If it wasn't for the public, it was selfish. It was for me.
Yeah.
And it was for my family because I wanted everybody to have this. But I did it for me because I wanted to be able to hear my grandparents' voice for the rest of my life. And I knew at that point Bert and I had just started dating. So it was probably about 19 years ago. So at that point I saw my grandparents are, in their 70s. They're not going to be here forever. And someday I'm not going to be able to hear their voice. And I don't want that to ever happen. I want to hear them talk to me and tell a story. Because, as you know, in the South, everybody's a pretty good storyteller. My grandfather was one of the best storytellers ever. And so I needed him. And of course, he completely did not cooperate with my exercise. Every question I asked him, what's your first car? Ford. I'm like, what kind of Ford? This is a guy I couldn't get to stop talking until I put my tape recorder on. But I love that I can look back and see what everybody said, and I can hear what everybody said in all of those interviews. It was really special. Part of what I do with my podcast, I've said this before, this is my own little chronicle of this time of my life when my kids show up. Not so much with a guest like you. Of course, I'd like to look back on that, but that's not the purpose of this. But when I'm sitting here with Georgia or Isla, I want to hear what's going on for them in this moment because, as you know, they change like overnight. They're a totally different person as they grow into, young adult and teenagers. So, and I had my dad on here for the same reason, because I wanted to be able to have it. I want to have it so I can see it, when he's gone in 25 or 30 years, even though he's 74. I'm planning on him being here a long time. So I love that. I love this idea. And you're right. It's going to be really hard to dismantle the system that's in place. I agree with you.
It's impossible. So
you can't do it. You have to find opposing ways of communicating, of functioning the same way, but different. I like that idea. I think the news is what really screwed us. I think CNN is what really sent us down this path. Because once cable news showed up,
24-hour news cycle,
not just 24-hour news, the news, ABC, CBS, NBC, was not a moneymaker. It was a loss leader. It was a civic duty that each of those networks agreed they would be honest and fair and report the news as factual, and that no one would make money off their news. So they didn't. So for that 30 minutes or 1 hour, when the news was on, when we were kids, that was a public service. When CNN showed up, it became for profit. And I think that's when everything started going in this direction. Because then, what makes people watch the news? Oh my God, there was a car fire. There's a bomb. There were 18 shootings. 14 people were murdered. A cat ate a dog. And now that's where people are going because it's so fantastic. Whereas when I was little, the newscasters weren't very shiny or fancy. They weren't very sexy. They were Walter Cronkite, he's pretty, good person is what you would think. I believe what he has to say,
Mhm.
as opposed to someone who might look a certain way or sell a certain thing. And I don't know. That's when I think all of this started going downhill. When
Yeah.
CNN showed up and made a public service for profit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of factors.
And where I don't even know where to get my news now, because I feel like if I listen to one thing, then I'm declaring myself that thing instead of being able to just listen to wherever I get the news. You have to pick, are you Fox or are you CNN? Well, I listen to NPR for all my news.
So do I.
But what am I then? Am I liberal? Am I conservative? Am I Democratic? I feel like it's pretty fair until you ask someone who's on the other side of it and they go, oh, it's completely corrupt also. Well, then where am I supposed to get my news? I have to choose somewhere. I feel like that's the most fair of all the evils is NPR.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm a huge KCRW fan. I don't know if you listen to KCRW.
I listen to KPCC.
Oh, cool.
I like KPCC.
Great station.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much that is that has gone, made our world completely complex and fear-based. And again, it's not changing. So we had to just come up with alternatives. And if the alternative is, I just saw a person in a peer of mine or a college mate of mine or a high school mate of mine doing these interviews and getting all this recognition for it.
Yeah.
Like everybody loves this person
Yeah.
because he's like he or she's going out there and getting all these stories and bonding with all these people. Maybe I'll give it a try.
Yeah, totally.
And then, maybe we'll get a lot more news about people doing good things. So I mean, just changing it that way. I've heard you talk about on one of your podcasts. There's so much to talk to you about if we have the time about some of the podcast topics you've talked about. One of them was how long it took 911 to respond to your daughter's carjacking. Or I'm sorry, not carjacking, but it's getting
when your car was stolen. Yeah.
And I was just thinking as I was listening to it, you were like, how can we change this? How can we do this? Do I have to call somebody myself? That'd be great, but it's not going to really change anything. The only way we're going to change this is to sort of maybe flush out this, we need more people that want to be police officers. Maybe we flush out the stories of the good police, good stories about police officers.
Yep.
And the stories of how they rescued me, saved my life, how they just were an ear to listen to, a shoulder to lean on.
Right.
If you had all the stories of 911 dispatchers who told 10 or 20 stories each about a time in which, they were the person that, they calmed this person down in this emergency.
Saved a life.
Yeah. Then you get more people applying for those jobs. So
that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. I think that's a great tool.
You just have to bring out the best in people and then again, work it so that maybe you can change the systems little bit by little bit. It's not going to hurt the system to hear all these great stories about police officers or 911 dispatchers.
No, definitely not.
Not going to hurt it.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at that. Because I would listen to that. I love StoryCorps. Do you ever listen to StoryCorps?
Yeah, StoryCorps is amazing.
Oh my God. I cry almost every Friday when it comes on.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing is creating a portal with that.
Yep.
That StoryCorps is always two people talking to each other about a story, about a common experience, or one asking a question to the other. But I only get it on Fridays at like 9 a.m. for 5 minutes.
Yep.
And then it's gone. I don't even know how to find it otherwise.
Yep.
But what you're talking about is creating a portal made by a platform that does that just has story after story after story that's positive and helpful and educational without being like academic. Education comes from everywhere. It just doesn't come from school. It's very educational to listen to someone older than you tell a story about one of their life experiences. I learned so much from listening to my grandfather tell stories about all kinds of things. And we don't sit around the churchyard and shoot the shit anymore because we're too busy. And we go home and get on a device or get on the television and don't do that. That kind of just chatting with each other, the rambly, long chats are where you just learn so much in those. Mm-hmm. About yourself and about other people and about your community. And Yeah, that would be cool to have a place where you could go and just listen to a bunch of chats. You know,
I mean, or read,
yeah.
read the stories, and it is giving that opportunity for emotion and connection that you hear in StoryCorps to the masses
Yeah, right.
on a minute by minute basis.
Right.
Anytime you want to have that feeling, here's the platform. Open it up, send a question to a friend, or log on and say, "This is my question," and see who pops up to say, "I have an answer to that story."
Right.
You know,
So how are you spreading the word for people how are you getting people to join this platform?
there's going to be obviously some marketing and some PR angles, but the biggest PR angle I want to do is I want to talk about it on podcasts. So again, I can't thank you enough
Of course.
for
I'm
being
happy
just
to
so
have you.
open and generous.
Yeah.
It'll really bring me to tears a little bit, just because this has been such an emotional journey for me, as far as, like, again, having this vision, but it's a daunting vision.
Yeah.
And so many people hear about it and they're like, I kind of get it, but I kind of don't. I mean, it's great that you completely get it. I mean, you've done this where you've asked questions of this curiosity you've had of your family, and then the whole StoryCorps, that deal, the moth. You probably are
I
familiar
love
with
the moth. Love it.
So like, it's great that you understand it, but not everybody understands it. So I think I just want to go on a sort of a little bit of a road show,
Yeah.
talking about it a little bit. And then the other thing I really want to do is I want to do a documentary about the movement,
Oh,
a
yeah?
docuseries or a documentary,
Okay.
where we talk about actually taking this challenge as a culture right now, taking the challenge and trying to do something. And once we start producing some stories and some connections and some people changing their minds and saying, I didn't know about this person or their beliefs, and now I adore them.
Right.
To me, it's crazy. Like, you're driving down the street and somebody cuts you off, and right away it's the F you and the honk and the horn, and you have no idea what they're going through.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
No.
they could have just lost a family member. They could have just lost their job.
Yeah.
Anything could happen. So the fact that we're not giving each other enough credit, or the worst case scenario is just like, oh, this person's a California person, I know I don't like them.
Right.
Or this person it listens to NPR, I know I don't like them.
Yeah.
When in reality, if you got in a car accident and your car was on fire and that person was pulling you out of those flames, you wouldn't care.
You wouldn't say, do you listen to NPR?
No.
Okay, stop.
No, you would be their
No
friend
way.
for life.
Totally.
You would be their friend for life, and you would love each other, and people would see your love for each other and be like, did you see Jack has a friend from California and he just loves them? He used to think everybody from California was whack jobs and that whole deal. So that's kind of like what we're trying to do in small bits and pieces. It's just trying to connect people in that emotional, we all don't need to pull each other out of burning cars.
No.
But if I pull a great story out of you that you love, and the fact that I'm celebrating this story and the world is seeing us celebrating it a little bit together, they're going to say, you know what? I like this person. I know that could be the case for anybody, right? I know I could take anybody. As long as they were open-minded, okay,
Yeah.
I'll sit down with you for an interview. And I'm not going to, let's talk. I know 99.9% of the people will come out of that interview connected.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
And it starts there.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about, is just trying to get people to tolerate each other again. I'm not trying to move mountains.
Right.
Just getting people to know, hey, listen, this person is a lot more like me than different.
Right.
I guarantee it. We both have 2 feet. We're both born, raised, have our favorite foods, have our favorite vacation, have our favorite music. And so we're just trying to get there on a mass level.
Right.
And again, it doesn't have to be super mass, hundreds of millions of people. It could be a
Right.
couple million people. You would, with a couple million people and the reverberations of those connections, even 100,000 people, 10,000 people, the reverberations of those connections would expand far and wide, give some people some hope, generate a lot of money. Even if you did it with 100,000, 200,000 people, 1 million people, you would generate a ton of revenue for everybody involved. It might be some pocket change for the interviewer and the interviewee. If a story goes viral, maybe you get a check at the end of the year for $2,000.
Right.
Just for being a good person.
Yeah. Just
so
for being
again,
a good person.
But
how are you advertising it? How? I mean, people who listen to me will find it through me.
Mm-hmm.
But how does someone who didn't listen to this find it?
Well, we're starting slow.
Yeah.
I don't mind starting slow.
Yeah.
Because, we're going to have to work out a lot of bugs.
Sure.
We're going to have to work out, different scenarios when this happens or that happens. So I'm fine with it starting slow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with a couple thousand people trying it out at first. If it grows, if I get introduced to another podcast, or if I get, another great thing about this is, whereas most tech companies, infotech is what we call this kind of company. Most infotech companies would hire mostly programmers, computer technology people. This particular company, I think, is going to be probably equal parts computer tech people and journalists, because I'm going to need a lot of staff leading the way on cool questions, cool exercises. Let's have this town interview this town. Let's have this college interview this college. Let's talk about these issues. We have, the editors will be digging in. This story is amazing. Interacting with our users. This story is amazing, but the ending, give me a little bit more of the ending, so we're going to need as many journalists as editors. And to me, that's a great story to tell, by taking that story to newspapers, magazines, hopefully getting written up about that we're, because so many journalists are losing their jobs. In this day and age. All these local newspapers are getting broken down and bought out and turned into propaganda machine, the whole deal. But a lot of journalists are out of jobs.
Yeah.
And so if I have a company that's hiring as many journalists and editors and video editors and audio editors as actual technologists who are doing the development and whatnot, I think that's a great story to tell too. So we'll take that story out, PR angle.
Yeah.
And then, it is... marketing is also, there's a lot of great companies, and working in the advertising and marketing space in Los Angeles for the last 20 years, I've met a lot of great people that have started great companies or work at great companies. That's all they do. They specialize in getting your message out to the right people.
Right. That's
right?
great.
So through social media, through traditional advertising channels. We have partnerships that will get in place where we can get the word out. But as far as getting the word out right now, it's just starting out slow.
Yeah.
From podcast to podcast, to taking the idea to some journalists. Hopefully they love the angle that, this is going to hire as many journalists as tech, and how we believe in journalism.
Right.
Maybe journalism, if the news is getting pulled away from good journalists, then maybe they can help us write people's good stories, or help craft or edit good stories, people's human stories. Yeah. There's always been that part of journalism. The newspaper was what happened today in the stock market and sports, and at the end, there's always like these personal stories, right?
Yeah.
So this will be, and I think the journalists that helped write those personal stories probably were some of the happiest,
probably
because they're the most interesting. And again, just like what you get from talking to people, they were getting from talking to people and bringing it out. So I think we can convert a lot of journalists from writing about the weather to writing about helping people craft their story or coming up with topics and that type of thing. So there's several PR angles with the documentary about changing our culture, fighting back against this polarization, called, I think for now, the title would be, America, What's Your Story? And, or Interview Everyone Now, because it's just, so PR angles with marketing, PR, word of mouth, just starting out slow. But as we start to gain people that want to come on board, investors, then the world's our oyster. We can reach as many people as we have money to reach, or we can just do it PR wise. It's not too much of a worry for me right now, because again, it's going to be a slow burn.
Well, it sounds like you have. I mean, that's the world you came from.
Yeah.
So you know that world.
I know it a little bit.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
I
great.
know it a little bit, and again, I can't wait to develop partnerships. I have people that have companies that do A/B testing. A/B testing is basically where, hey, we pose a question like this, we pose a question like that. Let's throw out A/B and see which one works best. Or the logo is like this, or the logo is like this. Let's throw it out there and see which one's the best. So there's a lot of partnerships that need to take place to take it to the next level, then the next level, then the next level.
Right.
There's a lot of work to be done, but again, it's all for good, and at least somebody's doing it.
Yeah.
Because I just was waiting for somebody to do it, and nobody was ever doing it. I was waiting to see this on Facebook. I was waiting, waiting to see this in other social media channels, and nobody was doing it.
Huh.
Nobody was interested in doing it. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to do it.
Good for you.
I mean, I want to be proud of something that I've done.
Totally.
And again, to me, it was just Gen X. I think we know before and after better than anybody else. I think it's our problem to tackle, and it's a big problem.
Yeah, it is a big problem. It is an unfortunate problem. I think it is the only way we could really fix it is to hit it from everywhere, not just social media or news, but from education and the messaging that kids get these days about their value based on their grades and their value based on whether or not they go to college and what college they go to is the most ridiculous racket I've ever been involved in my life. I think it's a bunch of bullshit to make a child. I had no idea what I wanted to do or who I was when I graduated high school at 17. 17. And these days, the kids are even less mature than we were. I mean, we were the first latchkey kids as a generation. We were the kids that took care of ourselves in a lot of ways, out till the street lights came in and on and, latchkey kids. And our kids, this generation of kids haven't grown up like that, but we're expecting them to know even more than we did when they graduate high school about who they are and what they want. And we had more choices than our parents did, but they have even more choices than we did. You know what? Our kids we have one freshman, and I couldn't believe that no one just goes for an undeclared liberal arts major anymore. No one applies to school for that. So if you want to get into a school, apply as an English major or a history major or a liberal arts undeclared major, and you'll get in because nobody does that because nobody wants to go in undeclared.
Wow.
It's not cool. It's not okay to not already know. That's the culture. It's not every person, but it's definitely the culture. And if you're not at one of these 2 or 3 schools, you're nothing. And I've experienced that culture having Isla with a learning disability, have teachers look at me and go, I don't know what you're going to do with her. And me go, she's very smart. She just doesn't read like everybody else. Maybe we should throw her out. Maybe we should flush her down the toilet. What do you mean? What am I going to do with her? What I'm going to do with her is find ways to shore up and scaffold around what she needs to get her out of this system. Because once she gets to be an adult, she's going to be fine. But the messaging she's had her whole life has been, you're either an A student or a failure. That's it. There's no middle. And that's a broken system, which also feeds into this vapid system of social media where if you can't get validation in the classroom, she doesn't have PE. There's no art in her classroom. There's no home ec. There's no shop. There's no woodworking. There's none of the stuff that we did, that we had, that maybe a kid that's not great at English would be amazing at shop and would run the shop team. Well, there's no opportunities for kids like that anymore because it doesn't exist in public education. And it's a crime. And I think it also contributes to nobody's being a cop anymore. Everybody's doing all this stuff on social media that gets them nowhere, makes them feel worse about themselves because they've spent their whole educational life, unless they're a top achiever, being a failure because that's the only choice in the culture we've created. That's been my experience of raising kids in public school today. There are teachers who aren't like that. But again, that's not the culture. That's not the culture. That's the specific person, just like you and I have this culture of let's help people. Let's be curious. Let's ask questions. Let's build positivity. But somehow that's not really our culture these days. We're the outliers, and we should not, our mentality, should is a hard word, but one would like to hope our mentality would be the mentality most people strive for, is to be positive and helpful and happy and to want to give and to want to make the world a better place. And I don't know if I'm a super positive person. I'm not a pessimist at all.
Can't give up.
But it is hard to look around and go, wow, I might be the only one here that is like that,
Not for long.
I don't think so. I have great hope in people and I love people. Everybody who sits on this couch is a good person.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had a bad person. So that speaks to who we are too as a culture and a society, right?
Yeah, you just got to give them a little push. They're lost. They're confused. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They don't think they have any opportunities to be that good person, or any social media opportunities to be that good person. Everybody else is doing this, doing that.
Yeah.
I dream of a day in which one day when the college boards that are looking at these applications go, oh, well, let me look at our social symbio page. Oh, they've interviewed 300 people.
Wow.
And they have 20 stories or 30 stories themselves that are amazing.
Wouldn't that be
that helps them
great?
get into college.
Well, that could be a wonderful tool for a classroom exercise.
Exactly.
Yeah, this could be amazing. You Mr. Mr. So-and-so's English class interviews Mrs. So-and-so's English class. That's amazing. How fun would that be?
Or we want everybody in this high school class to get interviewed, and you all got to do it.
Yeah.
And you can't leave anybody out.
Right.
And you could start with these 5 questions, or you could go any question.
Right.
But we're going to do a challenge, and you're going to be rewarded in some cool way. Where if you guys can get an interview done with everybody in the class, now everybody doesn't feel so isolated, alone,
Right.
and feel like doing something crazy.
Right. Totally.
You know.
What's on your list?
Oh yeah. So I had the fertility.
Don't forget that.
I had the fertility one, but then I started with your Motley Crue.
Oh,
with
how fun was
Kathy.
that?
Yeah,
So fun.
Yeah, I'm of the same generation, so we were rocking the Crew and the
Nice.
Def Leppard and everybody back in the day.
Right.
Sounded like an amazing concert to be to. It's such fun. That topic is incredible. Just live music experiences, the people around you. You guys were talking about the people around you,
Yep.
sneaking stuff into the concert, the after concert binge eating and just hanging out. I mean, if everybody I wish I've been to so many live of music that's really important to me.
Mhm.
I've been to so many live music shows. I wish I would have recorded a memory of each of them. I never did.
Wouldn't that be great? I have done. That's the first time I've done it. I think is when we were talking about Kathy's birthday.
I mean, all the shows that I've seen, so many great shows, and the people that I've met, and the parking lots, and all that
It fades,
stuff.
doesn't it? It fades. You think you'll remember it forever, and then 2 years later, you go, "What was the name of that thing?"
Yeah. And then, even on that podcast, you even talked about, your oldest daughter was giving up on water activities too quickly.
Yes.
And I was like, as a new parent, I was like, my little 4-year-old Valentina, she kind of gets frustrated with not being able to do something. And I see her give up, and it just breaks your heart that all you got to do is try a little bit more, try a little bit more. So just like stories from parents that maybe either regretted letting their kid give up on something or push them to succeed at something, and the joy they had in that, right?
Yeah. The joy the kid has. That's what it's for, right? That they can persevere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you interviewed your daughters about college, pre-college jitters. I mean, everybody has those.
Yeah, totally.
So like, and the advice to give to them as they're going to college, you had, advice that, this is who I am and who I want to be.
Right.
Advice that you're going to go find these things. It's not going to be like high school. It's on your own. You're going to go find, just giving advice to kids going to college would be so much fun to hear the answers of that.
Yeah, totally.
And then you interviewed Kathy and Kirsten about volunteering.
Yeah.
The pride in what you're doing. Like to hear everybody's story about why they volunteer, the pride they have in it, the hardships of it, because I got a full-time job and I'm still volunteering.
Right.
Or even you talked about volunteering in your family.
Yeah.
You said that you said that your grandfather was really volunteered all the time and everything, and it comes through your blood. I mean, just having that story that, this person that cut you off in traffic, if you just knew that there's this amazing volunteer
Right.
and their whole family of years and years and years of volunteering and helping people, maybe you wouldn't be so mad at them.
Yeah, totally.
If they cut you off in traffic, you know?
Totally. Maybe they're just a human being and they just cut you off in traffic. And it's really not any more deep than that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. A lot of things it's just not that deep.
Yeah, it's not.
And it's not personal. So many people take so many things personally that aren't personal. 9 times out of 10, they're not thinking. Yes, for you. 9 times out of 10, they're not thinking about you at all. They didn't cut you off because it was you.
Yeah.
They cut you off
never.
because they were distracted or something else. It's not personal.
They got something going on in their lives, of
Yeah.
course, and they're a good person too. We're all good people.
Totally.
You just have to break the shell. You just have to find it.
Completely.
Nothing's allowing us to see it anymore.
I agree. It's hard.
Yeah, dropping your kids off college with Jean and Margaret.
Jean and Jeannie. Oh yeah, Jeannie and Margaret. Yeah. They dropped their kids off.
You talked about friends or whatnot that might have college children that are having trouble in college. Boy, that's got to be real hard. I never did. I loved it. I went to school many more years than I was supposed to, like your husband. I loved my best years of my life. But some kids that do have problems there, like just to read other stories about parents that had children who had, the children thought they were having problems and the way they dealt with it, or it ended up being okay. would be so helpful for other people that are going through that.
Yeah.
Or
it
students
would.
to read that, students
Totally.
to read other people's, I started out in college and it was horrible and I thought I would never fit in or this or that, but I did, and it
Right.
worked its way out. And this is the way I did it. Just being able to read those stories for these new kids, again, who you're talking about, are really at a disadvantage going into college, especially after COVID and
Yeah.
dealing with social media. I couldn't imagine. Again, I'm toasting to the fact that we didn't have social media when we were growing up. God, I
Amen.
couldn't imagine going
No.
to school with it, the pressure.
Oh, I would have been ruined. I would have been ruined.
Then my favorite podcast probably was your Aunt Carol.
Oh, my Aunt Carol. I love my Aunt Carol.
Look at all these questions I got just from
Oh,
Aunt
my
Carol.
God. Yeah.
She is just a fabulous person.
Yes.
Teachers.
Yep.
Why don't we all have stories? Just a paragraph. And I'm not talking long stories. I'm talking a paragraph or two.
Yeah.
A couple sentences if you need to. But a paragraph or two with some pictures about your favorite teachers.
Yeah.
If we all wrote about the teacher that really stepped up for us in our particular need.
Yeah.
That would be so good for those teachers. It would be so
Yeah.
good for us. It would be good for getting other people to want to be teachers.
Mhm.
It's such a big part of it. And actually, if any of my classmates from Saline are listening to this podcast, I would love to start a page where at least my hometown came together and talked about all of our favorite teachers from my high school.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, we had a great high school. And, again, doesn't seem too outlandish or impossible to start challenges where every high school, there's 300,000 high schools in this country.
Right.
If every high school did a little challenge where,
Yeah.
all the alumni wrote a little something about a teacher that stepped up for them in one little way or another.
Right.
Or many, many teachers, if you have that great luck. Then you're talking about a whole new ball game when it comes to teaching and that whole deal. And stories of being held back.
Mhm.
When you always talk about that, and I had friends that were held back too, and I know they struggled with it. And to have all those stories out about how I was held back, and it was the best thing for me.
Yeah.
And it helped me. And look who I am now.
Right.
Then kids wouldn't struggle with this so much if they
Right.
knew there's so many people. It's
Yeah.
not- right now we're dealing with that with Valentina. She's not, she's so young, but she's got a December birthday.
Uh-huh.
So we don't know to put her in, to be young in her class or to be
Yeah.
old in her
Yeah.
class. We're kind of figuring that out. My wife is the guru of that. Hi, Jazzy. Jasmine's her name. But it's those stories are important.
Yeah.
And to see all the
They
successes. I think about all my friends that were held back, and they're all super successful now.
Right.
I'm like, come on. I want these stories out in the world.
Yeah.
Why aren't we talking about this instead of who we're voting for?
I agree.
Your family camping trip that you would do, and that prank about how they put your one uncle on in the water. It's
Right?
ridiculous. If we had more stories about all the pranks we did to each other, it reminds me of my father was this insane ghost storyteller.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Hey, Dad. He would, he was a police officer. So he would start every story out with, we'd be somewhere camping for Boy Scouts or something. And he would start way up north, Michigan, and he would start the story out. The local law enforcement just, knew that I was, sheriff and I was up here. So they wanted me to know about this particular.
Oh, Lord. I wouldn't sleep all night.
Oh my God, he would kill it. And he would start like that. And then he would say, now, if anybody, this gets a little graphics. If anybody doesn't want to listen to this, just raise your hand. We'll let you go back to your cabin or whatever. And of course, somebody would raise their hand and be like, well, just listen to this first part. He
Oh
would
my
suck you in, and oh my God, it was like so traumatic. I would help him do some of the props, like rope burns on the tree of the Native American boy that helped this other deformed boy escape wild animals and all kinds of
my
weird
God.
beasts and stuff. And I would still be scared, even though I helped him with it. And he was a very matter-of-fact person. He just had this insane voice that would just scare the living daylights out of you.
Oh my
And we have
goodness.
these stories, and now my friends and I talk about those stories, even if we were scared out of our minds and we thought it was a bad thing. And there were kids that wanted to go home.
Sure.
Like from 3 hours up north. I want to go home. I want to go home.
Totally.
And we would calm them down and everything, but we talk about those stories like endlessly, how cool they were
That's
and how
awesome.
much fun they were, right? So I have sort of
You
like,
should start keeping a log of them.
oh,
on
I have.
This,
I have. Then I will. I've got some of them in my mind. They're just so good. And all my friends, to invite all my friends to write about these ghost stories would be so great.
that would be
And
awesome.
it'd be great for my dad, too. Oh, yeah, of course. He would love it.
Oh, yeah, of course. He would love it.
When, when you, 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 when y- when your Aunt Carol talked about spending last moments with your other aunt.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, talk about just understanding somebody, hearing, and she said, I don't really want to talk about this. And you were like, no, trust me, there's going to be a lot of people that email me and say, I did, I have the exact same experience.
It's right.
I mean,
and that did happen.
Yeah.
So many people emailed me and said that, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
It was cathartic. It was good for me to hear. I felt like I'd done the same thing. I did that with my mom, my brother, whoever. Because it's just a human experience to lose someone you love. That's a part of the human experience. And we spend so much time sometimes just trying to get through the day or trying not to feel those emotions. But they are part of the human experience too. Loss and grief and fear and, this guilt for not spending enough time or not doing the right thing when you lose a person is part of the process. I was so proud of her for doing that. And when it was over, she said to me, I'm really glad I did that. So I'm glad she did too. It's scary to open yourself up and be vulnerable to the extent that she was on the podcast. It's not always, comfortable, obviously, but it's can be scary. Because sometimes you don't even know how strongly you feel about something until you start talking about it. And then you realize how much it's still with you or how much you haven't dealt with or how much bigger it was than you thought. So I was so proud of her, and I was glad that she felt good about it later. She said she did feel really good about opening up.
I mean, so if we can get, many people to write about these stories.
Yeah.
And again, when you hear someone get emotional about a story like that, you're like, that's a person. I relate to that person.
Yeah.
I don't care who Aunt Carol voted for.
No,
She's me. She's me. You know,
totally.
and she's a living human being with lots of memories and lots of emotions, and
Right.
and we're just the same.
Yeah, we're just the
flesh
same.
and blood.
Yeah.
I love that story she told about that horse that used to go two laps around the house.
Yeah.
It was no good
She's
anymore.
The best.
It was no good anymore because the horse he wouldn't do anything else. I love that story. And then you had Kelly Brown on.
I love her.
And then you guys got in some deep stuff with that one. I mean, a lot of it was right over my head, but a lot of it was really good. Just like, working out your woes sometimes with exercise.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's been times in my life that I was so depressed, coming home from work, depressed about this or that, and, struggling to get in the gym. But when I did, I came out 2 hours later, refreshed, happy, just get your, endorphins going, moving. Talk about the amount of people that have stories about just either picking up running or swimming or paddle tennis or pickleball that changed their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of stories we could get that. And the stories I'm going for are both, topics that can get a lot of stories, but topics that also can get the quality stories, right? It's like quality versus quantity.
Yeah, totally.
There's a balance there too. I'm neither here nor there on it, but I do want to start with questions that reach a broad range of people, but also questions that bring out our best stories.
Right.
Right. That's what I want to go for, is our best stories and our most important stories.
Right.
So, it's interesting, like you come up with these topics, you may get 3 responses. You come up with these topics and questions, you may get 6,000.
Yeah.
But to me, they're equal.
Yeah.
Because if those 3 are really important stories, then it's just the same as the 6,000.
Totally.
One comment, one quote, one action that changed your life. You guys have talked about that too. There's so many times in our lives that we have like something happens where it's like, okay, now I know it's time to kick it into high gear, or something you hear or some interaction you have really is a pivotal moment of change in your life. And we get those, several times throughout our lives. We never write them down.
Right.
I don't know why we don't.
Yeah.
But, that's really important, I think, for you to remember that.
Yeah.
The things that make you laugh, the things that make you laugh every time. There's those one thing. If we all had that little place that we go to for those 10 things, either a joke or a TV show part or a book that you read that always cracks you up, then you could always go to that when you're in need, right? So just and I can, what we're going to do is eventually have it where your dashboard, right now you're just seeing your stories, and you can organize them by title, the date you wrote them, um, uh, uh, or the date you wrote them, alphabetically, and one other way. I can't even remember. I'm like, my mind's so scatterbrained right now.
Topic by topic?
No title, the date it was written, and then the amount of views it has. So you can organize your stories any way we want. One day you'll be able to organize them by like a book of life. So like your younger stories, your high school stories, your pivotal life-changing stories, your college stories, and you'll be able to, I think, if you reach a certain goal where you write enough stories, we'll print a hardcover book for you and send it to you with all your stories in it.
That's amazing. That would be amazing.
Yeah, but we also want to do it where maybe the incentive to get that is you also have to interview. I want it to be, I mean, it will be how it is and turns out, but I want it to be where everything is incentivized to also be about the other. Like you will definitely get kickers and bonuses and all this stuff if you not only write stories, but you ask questions.
Right.
I don't want you just sitting there writing your own stories. That's great.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad, and that's going to help you, and that's going to help everybody that knows you. But to really help other people is what we're trying to do here, is to ask questions, right? So there'll be kickers and incentives by asking questions as well as telling your stories.
Right.
Your dog walker, Ruth.
Yeah.
I mean, just talking about animals, people's animal stories.
Yeah.
If everybody had their animal stories written down, the love they had for these animals, getting these animals, adoption, fostering animals, losing your animals. Everybody relates to that. Right?
They sure do. They're part of your family.
Yeah, they're part of your family.
Yeah.
And
or ours are. Maybe not everybody's are, but ours are definitely part of our family.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Do you have any pets?
I have 2 little dogs.
Yeah.
And my wife, I wanted a golden retriever. My wife convinced, well, we were at the time we were living in a smaller condo, so it just wasn't, we didn't feel right about getting a big dog.
Yeah.
So we got these 2 little dogs. They're called Cottons or Coton de Tuileries. They're kind of like Havanese or Maltese. They're little like fluff balls.
Yeah.
Very cute. They were supposed to be the clown dog, right? They were supposed to be like a golden retriever. Funny and just like happy and all that stuff. Well, boy, are they just codependent. I got 2 of them because they're not supposed to be alone. They'll like lose hair and stuff. They get so depressed if they're alone.
Oh my gosh.
We got 2 of them. And even then, they just follow me around the house all day long, wondering what I'm doing and when they're going for their next walk. And last night was almost a nightmare. I was preparing to come in here and also taking care of the baby and all that stuff. I let them out one last time before they were going to bed, and sure enough, a skunk was out there.
Oh, no.
And they got eye to eye, started barking at that skunk, and I just had this fear wash over me, like, I don't have time to do the soup.
To
the tomato
de-skunk,
soup.
right?
I don't know. Have you ever had to do it?
No.
And you've never had an animal skunk?
I've never been skunked, no.
Thank
never
God.
been skunked, no.
I've had friends that have been skunked, and it's like, you can wash them all night long in tomato soup, and that smell is going to be there for another 6 weeks. You know? I mean, so like the fact that they got nose to nose with the skunk last night, I was like, oh my God, I was so scared.
Please no, right? Please no.
The one story I do have about an animal that I would like to share on my platform is about a dog I had in college.
Yeah.
And I went to Ireland, traveled Europe my senior year, came back to college for my second senior year, and got a German Shepherd and named him Guinness in honor of Ireland, because everybody in Ireland is so beautiful and wonderful. Shout out to all my friends in Donegal. And I had him for 2.5 years, and we spent one night apart.
Aww.
And that's it. He was my best friend. He would go everywhere with me. If there was a wedding, because German Shepherds are so obedient, I'd put him on a leash on a tree. He'd probably sit there by the tree anyways, but I just put him on a leash by the tree, go to the wedding, come back, he'd be fine, right?
Aww.
If I took him anywhere, he'd sleep next to me on the floor.
Aww.
Everywhere. In the back of my car, driving down to Florida. You know, Michigan people, we all visit Florida.
Yes.
And so he went everywhere with me. Well, one day, my dad was, after he retired being sheriff, he built houses. He built a bunch of houses, and we were at one of the houses. I was helping my dad do the cabinets in the house, or help move them over to the right place for the carpenters to come put them up and that kind of thing. And it just started snowing for the first time in Michigan. So I opened up the back door for Guinness because he loved the snow, and I took his tennis ball. I threw it one direction. I threw it another direction, and he loved the snow. He's chasing it with his mouth and everything like that. Such a great dog. And I went inside. I was helping my dad with the cabinets, and one of my dad's workers came inside and said, "I think there's something wrong with your dog. He's laying in the driveway." I said, "Oh, he probably, there's blood." I said he probably bit his tongue. As a parent, I was like, "He's fine. I'm going to go out there and I'll take a look at him, but I think he's fine." Came out there, and he was just, and now in retrospect, he was just dead as doornail on the driveway. And I just freaked. You know,
What happened?
I just lifted him in my arms. I threw him in the backseat of my car, and I just peeled across our little town, blowing every stoplight, every red light, right to the vet. I slammed the brakes right in the parking lot of the vet right in front. They were so sweet. This vet, Dr. Voss's office back in Saline, they were so sweet. They had the doors open for me and everything. And I ran in there and I popped them down the table and I just started crying. And they were like, get out, we'll take care of this. And in retrospect, what happened is sometimes German Shepherds have this condition in which an artery in their lungs just breaks.
Oh my God.
They thought, was he hit by a car? I was like, no, he wasn't hit by a car. He never goes in the street.
Yeah.
He was laying in the driveway. He wasn't hit by a car or anything. He just had an artery break, died young at 2.5 years old.
This is hard. How heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking. I couldn't get a dog. It took 10, 11 years to get another dog.
Wow.
Because I really bond with my dogs and I just love them so much. And I've heard your stories. Priscilla. Hey, buddy.
Shut the fuck up, dude.
How are you, buddy? Good to see
Good
you.
to see you. Good to see you.
Great to
Good.
see
I haven't seen you in almost like 20 years.
It's been a while.
Yeah, how's your dog?
I'm
kidding.
Yeah, I know. I'm
kidding.
Hey, I brought you a bottle of wine from Maynard James
Oh, fuck.
Keenan.
Yeah, for real?
It's-
from his
No, maybe Jennifer took
I'll be
it.
drinking that tonight.
from his winery in Arizona.
They go, he's there in somewhere with a guy named Jeffrey. And I was like, okay. And then they're like, wait, he thinks he might know some of your friends from college. And I go, who? And they go, Hutch. And I went, is this Jeff Rinna? And they go, yeah. I go, I fucking know this guy.
I don't know if you're on
Dude.
Are you on their Christmas list right now?
No.
That's their
No.
new picture.
Oh my God.
Fucking.
I wanted to bring that to show it to you.
That's
Aren't they so
awesome.
big?
Oh, God, they're so big. God, that kid has not changed one fucking bit.
Isaac?
Is that a baby Ange?
Right. It's a baby.
Yeah,
Angie.
baby Ange Hartley.
So
Named after her
cute.
maiden name. Because when you knew her, she was Angela Hartley,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Ange Hartley.
Great picture.
Yeah.
That's fucking
Isaac's
great.
20.
Isaac's 20. And he's runs a hot dog carts at FSU.
No.
No.
Of course he does. Of course he does.
He's an entrepreneur.
Of course he does. Of
called-
fucking course he does.
It's called College Dog. Big shout out. Anybody listening at FSU College Dog.
Hey, listen, if you get a picture of you with a college dog and you tag me in it, I'll repost you on Instagram.
Dude, Isaac is going to blow
Fuck yes.
up, dude.
I came in actually, I have to go question. The Spectrum guy's here.
Oh, he is?
And he wants to know, is that our only box in the back?
I have no idea. What do you mean?
Why is he here?
Because the wire was
I told
detached
him.
from
And he said,
there.
are we having any problem with our cable?
Our cable?
Yeah, or whatever. It's our Spectrum.
I think it's the internet.
Are we having a problem with our
This
internet?
one is spotty, yes.
Okay. All right.
Or Peter said it was spotty in here
Okay.
yesterday.
I'll be back. I'm going to go. It's great seeing you, buddy.
Thank you,
It is a
Bert.
great fucking
Well, thanks for
seeing you.
handling Spectrum.
Holy shit. It is so great seeing you.
Thank you, Bert. What were we talking about?
Your dog.
Oh, yeah. So, Guinness, that was hard. So, we got the 2 new dogs and just love animals. My daughter loves
Yeah.
I'm a dog person. Could never be a cat person just because I'm allergic, and so
Oh,
is my
are you?
wife. But they're such interesting animals, too.
Oh, love cats.
Yeah.
I'm a cat person, but I also have dogs because he's allergic to cats. But just not, I mean, he is, but he can't like cuddle with them, touch them, but he
Yeah.
can live with them.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Like some people can't even be in the same room with them. He
Yeah.
can do that. He just can't touch them.
Yeah.
So we have 3 cats and 3 dogs.
And the breed also matters. Some cats, I walk
Yeah,
in the
it's
room
true.
and it blows me up.
You're right.
And some, no problem at all. I lived with a
Yeah.
cat a couple times.
You did.
They're such interesting animals. How alike they are to the big cats.
Right? You know, they are the most successful predator on the planet is
I mean,
a house cat.
I mean, incredible what
They're
they
the
can
most
do.
successful. There's something else. Shirley, our yard cat. I think you saw Shirley on the way in. Did you
Uh-huh.
see Shirley?
Yep.
She is the best ratter on the planet. She catches rats and you know, in California, everybody has fruit trees. You can't avoid having rats. And I don't mean like the swamp sewer rats from like, you know, the big, I mean like, is it a mouse or is it a rat? It's like, you know, you can't really tell. They're not crazy big. At this house, they're not. Our last house, we had like alligator rats. They were huge. But yeah, she's a great ratter. I love her.
It's unbelievable. And, you know, I always think about those cats in deserts that can always win
Yeah.
a fight against the snakes.
Yeah.
I mean, they never lose.
No, they
Oh,
don't.
they're such
They're
incredible
so cool.
animals.
They're so cool.
Yeah, and Ruth was very interesting as well. It's just about her lifestyle,
Yeah.
being light on her feet.
Yep.
You know, as somebody that has too much stuff
Uh-huh.
and needs to pare down, it's just so envious of somebody that's lighter on their feet.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of people out there that are light on their feet, and they can, share those stories of being free.
Yeah.
Be more free to stuff.
Even that, just a non-conventional lifestyle.
Yeah.
She doesn't live a conventional lifestyle.
Yeah.
And people may think that's weird or crazy. I think it works for her. And who am I to say anything about it? She really loves her life, or she seems to love her life. To me, every time I see her, she's smiling and she's happy. And I think that's really cool to kind of live your own journey and not worry about anybody else's thoughts or opinions about it.
And it's
really
enough.
cool.
You guys were
It's
saying
enough.
you were saying it's enough to be that way. It's enough to live an artist's life.
Completely. Yeah. It's more than enough sometimes. I mean, we are inarguably have excess at this house, but the house we lived in before this was also enough. It was a little 1,800 square foot, 3-bedroom, not a big deal house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's enough.
You guys also talked about her documentary that when she wants to do, and you didn't talk too much about it, but you said it was about suicide.
Yes. Her mother committed suicide when she was in college. Her mother was terminally ill and knew she was going to pass and just went, I don't want you guys to suffer through this with me. So I'm just going to end it and let everybody go. Her mom's a social worker. And I think that it wasn't handled after her death in the most healthy way. And it caused Ruth to have some mental breakdowns when she was older. And because of that, she went into group therapy about suicide, survivors of suicide, and found out that the majority of families handle post-suicide very poorly. And I don't mean poorly like, oh, could have done that better. I mean like damaging, in a damaging way, like we'll not speak her name again kind of way. We will not talk about this ever kind of way. And it's a very kind of unique kind of malady in that community of suicide survivor, families of people who have committed suicide have that common malady that doesn't really exist in other military spouses who have PTSD or anything else where you can find a group of people who have a similar experience like suicide. So she was fascinated and intrigued and wanted to help people who weren't allowed to talk about their loved one who had passed by suicide. She wanted to really be a place of support for that group of people, which was far larger than she understood until she went to group therapy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. She's a wonderful human being, and all she has focused on is helping other people.
Wow.
Is this documentary, her whole focus and point is so that she can give other people relief because it was so hard for her.
Yeah.
It was so hard for her. And some people are resilient, and not everybody's resilient in the same way. And I think the emotional piece with losing her mother, she was not very resilient. And I think she doesn't want anybody else to suffer the way that she did from maybe having a hard time, just not knowing that anybody else had the same experience made that a very hard time for her. Because once she went in that room and went, oh, you too? And you? And you? Oh, okay. Because no one talks about suicide.
Yeah.
Who wants to? It's a terrible topic. It is so difficult to understand when you're not someone who's ever had, I've never had it, not like that. I've had thoughts of like, I'd love this to stop, but not like, and I will kill myself. Not like that. I can't imagine not having any hope than wanting to live. And I think that's what a lot of people feel when they are ready to end their life. And not a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Ruth's a pretty special person. I adore her, and I applaud her for finding her path. She speaks at suicide prevention conferences all the time. She volunteers. She's just a wonderful person. Yeah.
For a long time, one of the topics that I wanted to have on the site fairly quickly is people that have attempted suicide or thought about suicide that didn't, or it didn't work, and why they're glad it didn't.
Yeah, that's great.
I would love, and you got to imagine the numbers are crazy big, like hundreds of millions of people. I mean, even if you got 5,000 stories of I thought about it, my life was this or that, and there was no way out. Mm-hmm. There was absolutely no way out, and I either attempted or I thought about it, and I didn't. And I'll tell you right now, I'm so glad I didn't, because look at my life now.
Yeah. The same with
It's so
addiction,
amazing.
overcoming addiction. Or overcoming some kind of mental illness. Mental illness, so much of it is manageable with help and medication and therapy and practicing, different coping skills and lifestyles. And no one talks about that in big forums, not really. It would be really helpful. Learning disabilities. You know how many people have reached out to me and said, thank you for talking about dyslexia. No one talks about dyslexia. 1 in 5 people have it.
Yeah.
But no one knows about it. So no one knows what it's like to be in the trenches with a child who has it. And it's been helpful to me to have listeners go, I have dyslexia exactly like Isla's. This is what it's like. Like adults who, something I'm going through with Isla, I've had one person comment and say, this is why you're going through this. This is what's happening for her. She will outgrow this piece of it. This piece of it is going to be with her forever. So just be paid. And I'm like, thank you so much, because no one tells me any of that stuff. And it's hard to know it if you're not living it. They don't have a lot of remediators for dyslexia in Southern California that I could find anyway, in my experience. And I would be very shocked if they had dyslexia, so the person remediating the problem doesn't have the experience of the problem. Was really helpful for me to hear from an adult who had the same type of dyslexia as Isla and tell me what their childhood was like versus where they are today. Super helpful.
I know. I would love all those stories.
Yeah.
And you talked about with the infertility episode, you talked about people don't talk about this because of the punitive reactions they get. They're scared, that the reaction I'm going to get. What if it was much more commonplace where there was thousands of stories just like yours and this particular friend? And then again, I love the interview aspect, because it's like, we're not just asking you to just open up your heart. Somebody else, another real person, is saying, I care about this story.
Mm-hmm.
I want to interview you about this. Either your suicide attempt or your dyslexia or your infertility.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is good at interviewing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Will you have a place on there that has some 5 questions to jumpstart your interview?
Yeah, for sure.
I think you should, because a lot of people don't know how to start a conversation like that. Even like you said earlier, what's your birthday? That's a conversation starter. It sounds silly, but what's your birthday? Oh, my cousin has the same birthday.
Yeah.
My cousin works in healthcare and does blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I think you should have a little want to
Yeah.
interview someone about suicide? Here's 5 general questions you could start.
Well, you can always forward the questions that are already on the site. So if we have questions on our site from trending topics, could be animals, could be fathers, it could be moving to Los Angeles.
Right.
And then you could always forward those questions.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to originate from you.
Uh-huh.
Or you could
exactly. Yeah.
Or you could forward Leanne's questions.
Right.
If Leanne had
I
questions
see.
on there,
Okay.
and you could just forward that.
Got it.
So like you could be helped along. You don't need to be a professional interviewer. And again, in the beginning, it's really just about forwarding one question.
Right.
Just like starting there.
It's just a prompt.
We don't need everybody to be great at podcasters like you, great interviewers like you, but just start. And then we will start to see people come out of the woodwork that are really good at this.
Totally.
That's
so great.
And build an army.
That's so great.
You know,
I
and
didn't understand that that's what you meant. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
That you already had the question. You just send the question. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Phase 2, you'll be able to come up with your own questions and send them too. But phase 1, it's just questions that are on the site.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Paula, your friend Paula.
Oh, I love Paula.
Yeah. I would love to have everybody of their longest year. You guys had talked about this one time
That's
that she was having a hard time being sober because it seemed like her longest year.
Yeah.
I would love to know everybody's longest year and their quickest year, the one that flew by and the one that took forever because of this or that or this or that.
That is a great question. I have another friend who's having, every member of her family's had some kind of health problem. And it's not been small, it's been major. And I said to her just the other day, boy, I bet you're ready for 2022 to just shut down because it's been the longest year. That's a great topic.
Yeah.
The longest year.
The longest year you've ever had.
Yeah.
Right? And you talked about hiding or chasing.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for people to talk about their stories where I felt like I was hiding or I felt like I was chasing and now I'm not. And then just to have those stories out there so other people could relate, be like,
Right.
oh God, I'm hiding, I'm chasing.
Right.
I can change this too.
Yeah.
I and then Kirsten and your friend that had the heart attack.
Uh-huh.
And invisible illnesses.
Yeah.
It must be so. I mean, I have a couple of invisible illnesses. I get gout.
Oh,
It's
gout's
not-
terrible.
Yeah, it's not this. It's not
So
this, I can't believe
painful.
I just said that.
But it's
Can
not really
Halston
that
erase
invisible. Yeah, he can if
no,
you don't want
I'm
it
just
out.
kidding.
But gout is not invisible. I mean,
Well, yeah. I hate to make the analogy with her heart attack too, something where you don't see it in me. It's not
Yeah,
like I'm
yeah.
walking around with a brace, but trust me, if I ate something the wrong way, I'd have an ankle injury in a minute. You know,
Ugh.
it's like crazy.
so painful gout.
But
I have never had it.
But diabetes
Yeah.
and a heart condition. I do have a heart condition as well. Hasn't affected me in a long time, but it's called atrial tachycardia.
Hmm.
It's where when I was a kid, I would like jump to the tennis on the tennis court, and my heart would take off like it's on a battery,
Huh.
and it would go like 150 beats a minute for like, and you couldn't stop it. You would sit down, you would breathe, you would drink water, and it wouldn't stop. And
Huh.
all the adults, when they came around you and they put their hand on your heart, they would the look in their eyes would be like, "Oh my God, is this kid about to die?"
Right.
And I went and had it all checked out, and they said, "Well, your heart's strong. It deals with it. It can survive it." And some people get this for days. You know, you're only getting this for a couple minutes at a time.
Right.
And it would happen about every year, about this once a year, every year.
Huh.
It scared the living daylights out of you.
I
You don't know if
bet.
this is your last minutes on Earth or whatever.
Right.
And then as soon as I moved to California, it went away.
No way.
Well, I mean, it did. It happened a couple times in Cali, but other than that, in 20 years I've been here, it's never really happened. So my heart kind of grew out of it. But, invisible illnesses. I would love for people to talk about their invisible illnesses that you
Yeah.
can't see, because that's very empathetic, to talk about bringing on some serious empathy. Let people know that what you're dealing with a little bit, if you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah, totally.
And then you had your daughter Isla on.
Yes.
And I love when you're talking about, animal encounters would be so funny.
Animal encounters?
About when your dog got that squirrel finally.
Brrr. Yes.
All stories don't have to be super deep. I want a lot of funny stories.
Yeah, should be.
And a lot of awkward stories and a lot of like, oh God, this was terrible.
Yeah.
Like my skunks getting skunked.
Yeah.
How many people have stories of their animals
I'm
getting
sure
skunked?
a lot.
And just to have that down, as I'm a normal person just like you, her, getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
Yeah.
helping with her anxiety,
Yeah.
all the ways that parents and kids find ways to deal with anxieties and things like that, all the different activities that work for them.
Mhm.
It'd be so good to get that stuff down.
It would.
And then you said you talked about your pivotal years at the end of that podcast. It was so interesting. You broke down crying
Yes.
when you talked about Jan,
yeah.
and you said she was so important for your pivotal years.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of an NPR story I heard about this song called "Color Me Father."
Huh.
There's this beautiful song. I can't remember the Weathertons or somebody. I have it on my phone. It's called "Color Me Father." It's this beautiful song, sung from a boy. It's a man singing it, but the perspective is of a boy who's singing to his stepfather.
Oh, okay.
Saying, you know what, you should listen to the lyrics. You stepped up when nobody else would, and my mom needed the help, and all you did was give me love.
Aww.
And I was just, to talk about all the great, and then you had that episode, one of your last episodes was with your friends that are step parents.
Yeah.
Talk about getting all those stories somewhere in a hub.
Yeah,
where
that'd be
people
amazing.
can access them about the great step parents in
It's
their
like a
lives.
resource.
Yeah, like a resource. And
Yeah.
it's just talk about giving tribute to these people. These
Yeah.
great selfless people.
Yes.
These local heroes.
Mhm.
That's what I really want to. And the people that when we're volunteering, the people that have volunteered for the rest of their life to take care of a handicapped family member.
Yeah.
Why isn't there a story about all of them?
Yeah.
These people are so selfless. They're local heroes. The fact that they're dedicating the rest of their lives to taking care of a handicapped family member or friend. These are local heroes.
Yeah, they are. And it would be nice to have a place they could go and listen to someone else who's in a similar situation, because you don't know many people who are taking care of a handicapped relative. I know one person who's taking care of a handicapped relative, but that's one. I know so many people, but I only know one person who's actually doing that. It would be nice to have a place you could go and hear someone else who's doing that and feel not so alone.
Yeah, and
You
give
know?
them the respect they deserve.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, they deserve a lot of respect for what the sacrifices they make.
Yeah, totally.
You were interviewing an actress named Jessica Lowe.
Yeah.
And I love, work. I would love stories of working in different countries. She worked in Amsterdam or on cruise ship.
Yeah.
If I had a nice little hub of all the people that worked on cruise ships, I'm sure you get some really interesting stories there.
I bet there's a lot of stories from those people.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of stuff happens on cruise ships. I can't even imagine.
Below deck. I mean,
yeah, right?
I mean, Bert's cruise. We don't even know what's going to happen there.
I
Right?
am scared. I am terrified.
I mean, the stories there are awesome. Or her honeymoon in Italy. I would love everybody's story of their honeymoons. Italy is such a dear country for me. That's where we want to retire.
That's great.
You
Italy's
know,
beautiful.
Lake Como would be like, that's what my wife and I always dream of. Like we're going to retire in Lake Como, obviously visit the States, we'll be best friends with George and Amal. Yeah, just being in Italy, boy, I tell you what. And we live near Palos Verdes.
Uh-huh.
So right in the foothills of Palos Verdes is a nice little community called the Hollywood Riviera.
Okay.
And it's like right between Torrance and Redondo Beach.
Okay.
And Palos Verdes, was I drive around Palos Verdes all the time. That's where Valley goes to school, and that's where we go to all the parks there and all. And we're looking for a house there now. But it just reminds me of the coast of Italy.
Yeah.
Just like the coastline.
It's beautiful over there.
Yeah.
We were just there at Terranea.
Oh, yeah, so nice. We walk.
It's beautiful.
We go there all the time
Do
for
ya?
dinner and take Valley walking there. It's amazing. They just let anybody. Anybody can just come on the property with the dogs. We could take the dogs and the baby stroller, and we just walk across the property, go down to this little private beach that
Yeah.
it's public technically, but it's theirs, but it's open to the public. Go down there, throw rocks in the water, and then walk across to that little restaurant, Nelson's,
Uh-huh.
or have some beer and some burgers over there at Nelson's. We do that all the time.
It's great. It's such a great spot.
Yeah. And the schools that are there are really good. So
Yeah.
we're really happy to be part
Our
of
friend
the
is
Palos
a
Verdes.
principal at a school in Palos Verdes.
Which one?
I don't know what school he is the principal for, but he is, it might be private,
Yeah.
but I don't know. He's been there for years. He's been there for probably 15 years.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully he helps Valley. And
I'll
she's
find
getting
out for
kicked
you.
out.
She's getting kicked out.
She's a rebel.
She is.
Valentina is a very spirited, almost for tomorrow. And she's very spirited. I'll show you pictures afterwards, and just like feisty as can be. Last night she sat in the shower. She wouldn't get out of the shower. She sat in the shower for an extra 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
30 minutes cold with the water off, just sitting there because I don't want to get out, Mom and Dad. And you're saying to get out, and so I'm going the opposite direction.
Oh my goodness.
Very spirited, very independent, just
Yeah.
like her mama.
Yeah.
And that's going to be great when she gets older.
It
'cause
will
I'm
be.
not have to worry about her. But right now, it's making me gray.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's crazy.
It's hard.
Amanda, who got bit in the face by the
Right.
dog.
Right?
Dealing with trauma like that, dealing with any big traumas. I think those are wonderful stories about how you persevered through. I mean, just again, the type of people that run towards the emergency
Yeah.
instead of run away. I think those are great stories to write about yourselves
Yeah.
or talk about yourselves, that type of thing. It was a really interesting story.
Yeah. She's great.
There's another podcast. You probably know Ryan Sickler.
Yeah, of course.
And he does his podcast, The Honeydew,
Mhm.
is all about everybody's like worst times.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to it a whole lot, but because I haven't had a whole lot of time outside of your and Bert's podcasts, NPR, Brene Brown, a little bit of Howard Stern, but just for the laughs every once in a while. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, those stories of dealing with trauma and dealing with your worst days, just to get it out there, get it off your back.
Yes. Just to get it
therapeutic.
off your back. It is very therapeutic.
I mean, if we had a place in which we could all, if this is like a mass therapy session,
Uh-huh.
that alone would help out so much from what we're dealing with right now. It just doesn't feel like that there's any place to do that.
I don't see any place. I don't know. I don't think so. Not that I know of. There's no place to do that. No.
Yeah.
No, because you can't share. I mean, you can share good news on Facebook or
That's
Instagram.
it's only what people do.
yeah, good news, but not a story. No.
If
It's
you got
really
a place where
cool.
you're only sharing good news, boy, that's going to end up being real depressing
Yeah.
because you think everybody's life is so great, and it's
Very
really not.
true. That's a very good point. Yeah.
That's another thing that's going on with social media now. Like I said, there's no way around it, and I'm guilty of it too, and all that stuff. But I just would love a more honest place where you would write your goods and your bads,
Yeah, totally.
and understand. And again, I did it because this person asked for it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to give them the credit. They asked for it. They want to know about this particular time in my life, and I'm going to share it with them.
Right.
And I'm glad I did. After it seemed hard, and I didn't want to, but after I did, it was great.
Yeah. It makes you feel really good when you do stuff like that. It makes you feel good from the inside.
Yeah, trying to do this on a mass level, Leanne. It's not easy, but we got to do something, right?
Yep.
And then again, the final one was Jocelyn and Daryl, and their being step parents. And I just love that end story, what she told about giving that puzzle that was her naked.
Is that hysterical?
I mean, I would love stories of pranks, family pranks, and just like all these. They're so funny. I mean, this is what we really also need to get out, like how we're humans, like our ups, our downs, our funny, our goofies, our everydays.
Yeah.
So like I said, again, I have the site set up where you can per page, you can ask 6 questions. So I usually just kind of with the podcast, I'll listen to a podcast and I'll come up with as many questions as I can. Yours were like, on average 10 per podcast. If you whittle out your best 6, the amount of stories you could get, or the amount of stories anybody could get back. And again, if everybody's sharing in the profits, and everybody's sharing in the empathy, and everybody's sharing in the endearment to each other and the connection to each other, to me, it just seemed like an obvious 2 + 2 win-win-win. Everybody's winning out. There's no bad behind it.
Totally. That's so great. And it launches tomorrow.
Well, it launches, technically it's up. It's just on a subdomain, so that it's kind of on a different domain. But
by the time this releases, it will be launched, because Halston, when will this come out? A couple weeks.
Oh, great.
So it'll be out. It'll be up and running.
Let me know.
So how does someone find it?
oursocialsymbio.com or oursymbio.com, socialsymbio.com, trysymbio.com, thesymbio.com.
And
all get to
symbio
it.
is spelled
SYMBIO.
Got it.
Just like symbiosis.
Yes, but we'll spell it out.
Shortened out a little bit.
Having a dyslexic daughter, it's good to spell it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spell it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. OURSYMBIO.
Perfect.
And that'll be sort of like the main domain name, just short. Like I said, the full name is Our Social Symbio, just to kind of really spell it out what it is. But then we'll have shortened domain names, make it easier for people to get to.
Right.
And it might end up changing to OSS Interviews, Our Social Symbio Interviews, to really flush out the interview aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. But, and then you can shorten it to the O.
The O. Yeah, with enough money, you can just buy Symbio.
There you go.
Yeah, but some of those domain names cost a lot, whatnot. So I just got what I could for now, and it'll work its way out to be what it's going to be. But for now, Our Social Symbio is sort of like, I get it.
Right.
This is us, together, connecting, and this is a social media symbiosis.
Right.
Meeting, connection, companionship.
Right. I love it.
That we're not seeing today.
And then what?
That we're not seeing today.
That we're not seeing today. No, I agree with you. There's nothing like this. That's really, really brave and strong and giving of you to take this on. I'm excited to see it up and running.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Of course.
With great people like you, hopefully we'll get a little bit of traction, and who knows what'll happen.
I hope so too. I would love that for you and for the world.
Yeah.
Make the world a better place, right?
Yeah, and especially for the kids.
Yes.
I really need it for the kids. And for all of us adults too, it's going to be very therapeutic, I think. But for the kids, I think we have to do something because it's not going well.
Yeah. It's going in a weird place. But, well, any last thoughts? Any last things to share?
I don't think so. I think I got everything out. I think in the end, I just wanted to. Yeah, I think in the end, I was just going to say, this is a daunting project and it may look hard and everything, but it's not as hard as what they're dealing with in the Ukraine. There's things that are much harder than this, than just trying to get people to share their most important stories.
Right.
And be incentivized to go find other important stories in other people's lives.
Right.
Again, I think this is going to give back, right away. It may take a couple questions, but after that, you're going to be like, wow, I really feel good about what I just did.
Yeah.
And it came back. And, the incentive system, we have a little anagram, more incentives doing this, and say, spending all your time on Facebook or Twitter. More is money, opportunity, recognition, and experiences, right? You're going to get more money because, right now, Facebook, unless you're a big celebrity, you get eating pennies on the, for anything you post or nothing
Right.
at all.
Or nothing. Yeah.
Opportunity, because again, if you're a great interviewer, we're going to bring you in as an editor. We're going to make you a dedicated interviewer. We're going to bring you into the system.
Right.
Recognition or respect for the R just means, I think you're going to find out that just being about yourself, just being all about you, you're going to get a lot more respect and recognition by being about others.
Right.
Like, oh, did you hear John is the local interviewer and he's been interviewing the mayor and the local police chief, and oh, you know what, the governor's next. He's just like building this whole thing, and all he's doing is being about other people.
Right.
And then experience, because I do want to have interview stations at like local festivals, music festivals, food festivals, jazz festivals, art festivals, and you'll be invited to come there and interview people there and get VIP'd a little bit because you're a good person and you're an interviewer. So we're going to provide better experiences for you for doing this. So I think there's more incentive to do this. And again, the real incentive just comes back to you for being a good person and feeling good about yourself and having all your stories collected, that type of thing.
Totally. Good karma.
I love that.
It's
Thank you,
good
Leanne.
karma. Thank you so much. It was nice to meet you.
Oh, it's nice to meet
And
you.
thanks for reaching out and making this happen. It was a great conversation.
You're the best, Leanne.
Thank
Just
you.
the fact that you just like didn't know me from Adam and you're like, come on in, let's talk about this.
Why not? It's about positive things, and I'm all for positivity. I'm all for sharing love and stories and learning from each other. It's completely the same exact mindset that you said it yourself. I mean, this is my brand,
I know.
for lack of a better term.
I know.
This is what I love about life.
Yeah.
Is this connectivity that we should have more of, and we're not healthy because we don't.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that we're not as healthy as we could be because we're not as connected as we probably should be.
Yeah.
So I love this conversation. I think it's awesome. I can't wait to see it up and running. And I can't wait to ask some people questions and post some stories for myself. That'd be awesome,
Thank
right?
you, Leanne.
Sure.
And I want to see that list of 25 questions you gave your family.
Okay. I have them in a binder in my house. I'll dig them up and send them to you.
If you get a chance.
Yeah.
Just because we could start there.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Answer Leanne's 25 questions.
That's very true.
Or
I'd be
take
happy
these
to
to
do
your
that.
family.
Totally. I mean, yeah, I don't even remember what they were. Like I said, it was about 19 years ago. But I know exactly where the binder is. So I'll go pull the binder out and
So intuitive
look
of
at
you
it.
to do that. At 19 years ago, you were 18?
No, yeah, totally. Thank you. No, I was 32 maybe, but no, the 31, 30, 33, something like that.
What was your birth year?
1970.
Oh, yeah. I think about, I was 73
Uh-huh.
and my brother was 69,
Uh-huh.
but he's probably the same high school class as you, 88.
Uh-huh.
And I just think, like right away you think of like all the 88 people I knew, like what they were,
88's great.
Yeah, 88 was great. Our 91 was had more fun.
Right.
And we were the stars of our Saline High School for our 4 years. We always won the float competition and we had the best sports teams and all that
Nice.
stuff. But the class of 90 were the Devils.
Yeah.
Got in trouble all the time and stuff. So I don't know, like what was Bowden High School like as far as those different years?
I think the year ahead of me, the 87s were a little more trouble, and the 89s were a little more trouble. My 88s were really solid people. Like everybody in my grade was just solid, trustworthy, reliable, good ethics, good morals. The troublemakers were above and below us, I hung
That's
out with
convenient.
above and I dated below, because that's the way
Wait, so
I married a man 2 years younger than me. So
you did.
Yeah,
You
he's
always
2
dated
years
younger, huh?
I did. I always dated younger. But I always hung out with older. I don't know. But yeah, our class was just like, here's a perfect example of our class. I was maybe secretary of our class, senior class. I don't remember what I was, but I was one of the officers for the senior class. And our class only had about 74 people in them. So the same people would win like prom queen and sweetheart and whatever. It was always the same. It was a small class. And I moved in and out of my hometown through my childhood, but everybody in my class had been together since kindergarten. So by the time we got to our senior year of high school, the 4 class officers, I think it was just the 4 of us, sat and we were like, I think this year for prom queen, someone needs prom queen king. Someone needs to win that would never win anything.
Cool.
So who would that be? and we kind of talked about who that would be. And then we went around very secret time to our classmates and said, this year, this is what we're doing. We're going to elect Alicia and Timothy as prom king and queens because they were the nicest people.
Cool.
They were so sweet and everybody loved them, but they just were always overlooked, right? It was always the flashy people in our grade that got, I got best personality and this person always got the best looking and this person got, so that's what we did. We very covert opt the voting for prom king and queen, and they won. And it was one of the most fulfilling things I ever did in high school.
Awesome.
Was to watch them, to know that we wanted them to have it because they deserved it. Not that anybody else didn't deserve it, but everybody had already gotten something.
Yeah.
They were like the ones that just got overlooked.
Yeah.
And that's what my class was like. That was the energy and the culture of 1988 Bowden High School. I still love the people I went to high school with, even though I haven't talked to them in probably since high school, some of them, but I always felt so safe and comfortable in that group of people.
Yeah.
And I was very much like you. I hung out with the shop kids. I hung out with the smart kids. I hung out with the in trouble kids. I hung out with the cheerleaders. I was a cheerleader, but I hung out with everybody.
Yeah.
And I felt like our whole class was kind of that same way.
Cool.
Nobody was like a pariah. Nobody was really bullied. All that business happened from above and below us.
Yeah.
But our grade was just a bunch of really good people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so proud that we had whatever maturity or generosity of spirit in that senior year to go, who hasn't gotten anything, and let's make sure they do. It was really cool.
Oh, that is a great story.
It was really cool.
And it was a total surprise to those two people.
They had I will never forget Alicia's face. I will never forget her face. She had no idea. And she cried. And they had no idea. It was amazing.
Yeah,
it was really amazing.
That is a great story. And you said you were always always
best personality.
Big surprise.
I was Miss Congeniality. I never got in any kind of beauty contest. Every time I was in a beauty contest, I was too much of a tomboy. But I'd put my stuff on and walk down the thing and be this beauty. And I was like, there's no way. Now looking back, I was like, I didn't move like a girl. I didn't gussy up like a girl, but I wanted to be part of what was happening. So I would join like the beauty pageant or the prom queen, but I was always Miss Congeniality.
So cool. That's a great award.
I love it. I loved it because that award, the contestants voted for who was Miss Congeniality. It wasn't the judges.
Yeah.
It was the other people in the pageant.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was the best award because that meant everybody liked me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a big platter when it's engraved, Miss Congeniality, 1988.
Amazing.
And I always got Best Personality. And I always thought that was the best. I was like, hey, your looks go at some point. Your personality stays your whole life. So if I'm Best Personality, I'm in pretty good shape.
That's amazing. You haven't been to any high school reunions?
I have. I've been to, I think maybe 2. I went to our last big number one, whatever that was, 20 or 25 or whatever that was. I went to that one. It was really fun. We went to a Mexican restaurant and then went to a high school football game. Our high school football, it was like SEC football. We won state off a lot.
Even with a small school.
Yes, we won in our division. But we won this year. My high school team won this year. And one of my friends I went to high school with who won when we were in high school, his son won this year. So he and his son were both state champions at Bowden High School.
Amazing.
So crazy.
Yeah, apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Right? But yeah, our reunion was going to a football game, which was really fun. So.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of mine too, and they are so much fun.
They're so fun.
Seeing everybody and just loving. And again, I'm probably... I don't drive a Prius anymore, but I did. And, like a LA Prius driving guy, probably, on paper, the most different from some of these people. But when we see each other, it was just nothing but love and fun. Yeah. And that's because we know each other's stories.
Yeah, totally. You're right. It's because you know each other's stories.
And we, just by knowing each other's stories, knowing that we're all human, it doesn't matter which way we went or veered off. We all came back together like that. I'm very lucky to have great high school friends, great college friends, and great adult friends too that I met 3 phases of my life. When our wedding went down, I had, my groomsmen were 10. I had 2 family members, my brother and his son, 2 from college, 2 from high school, 2 from Josh and Jay Doty from North Carolina when we worked together because that was such an important part of my life. And so it was like really, segmented like that because I really do have this great groups, these all facets of my life. I took great friends from. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh yeah, I don't talk to anybody from college. I only talk to people from my high school,
Right.
or vice versa, that type
Right.
of thing. Hey, being Southern girl, I wanted to ask you about. We're thinking of names for the new baby, and I think we got it. I don't think this name is gonna matter anyways, but I want to know if you've ever heard of this name. It's a Southern name, and I've only heard it once. When I was at Vanderbilt University, I was interned there for a summer and met a bunch of great guys there. And one of them had a girlfriend from Georgia. Her name was Sellers.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Sellers.
I love that name.
That's a great name. I actually had a granny Sellers.
How do you spell it?
Sellers. Sellers.
Just like that, not like C or ARS or anything like that.
No.
Sellers.
Yeah,
I've like looked it up.
Yeah, Granny. I had a Granny Sellers. She lived to be 100. She cut her grass with a push mower till about 6 months before she died. I knew her. I knew her. She died when I was probably in high school. Yeah, Granny Sellers.
I love that name, and I've always told my wife that. My wife doesn't dig it as much. She thinks of the actor Peter Sellers, and she's like, "No, we're not going to name our child after Peter Sellers." I'm like, "No, babe, I have this. It's a really beautiful name. It'll sound so good, Sellers Rinna. I mean, it'll be so good."
Oh, that's a great name. Yeah.
But I just wanted to ask. It's interesting that you heard it. And are the Bulldogs your favorite college team?
Well, yeah. I grew up watching the Bulldogs. Yeah. I mean, Herschel Walker won when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
It was like all there was to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad loved to watch football, but he was not diehard for anything. He just loved to watch it.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up in like a dog family.
Oh, yeah.
But if the dogs were playing somebody else, we were definitely rooting for the dogs.
Okay.
So yeah.
I just want to keep that in mind. If the Dogs win and Michigan wins, they're going to play each other at SoFi in the national championship.
No way.
Yeah. That's my team, the Wolverines.
That's awesome.
That's where I went. So we're all in the Dogs and the Wolverines, and a couple other teams, TCU and Ohio State, are all in the Final Four.
Okay.
So they'll come play it.
Who's going to win, do you think?
Well, the Dogs are favored. They're the best team in the country, number 1.
They're
Michigan's
awesome.
rooted at number 2, but we think the Wolverines are going to pull it out this year.
Oh, good luck.
Before I forget, your grandfather sounded so interesting, and I love that story about his funeral was like wrapped around the block.
Oh, Haskell Kemp. His name was Robert Haskell. And he was, I have to say this, besides my husband, the best storyteller ever.
Yeah.
And he was an exceptional human being. He was someone who believed very strongly in community and would help anybody who needed help anytime. Was fun and funny. He absolutely adored me, and I adored him. And I remember standing at his funeral. It was freezing. It was so cold. He died in early December. And in Georgia, it's really cold. And people were lined up like out the funeral parlor, down the side, all the way through the parking lot just to go to his viewing. I think we counted, like, my hometown has 1,600 people. And I think, I may be wrong, Carol may have said the right number in her episode, but I think something like 800 or 900 people signed the guest book that night. So
wow.
It was essentially the whole town.
My gosh.
It came. I have always been very, very proud to say he was my grandfather.
Wow.
I loved him to pieces. I miss him a lot.
What a great story about, just everybody showing up.
Everybody, because he knew he did not meet a stranger. He could talk to anybody about anything. And he just was wonderful. I was so close to him. Yeah, it was amazing. His funeral was pretty profound, where I thought, if this is how you go out, boy, isn't this the way to do it? He died in his sleep, and he'd had a little bit of dementia and a little bit of health problems, but not anything that slowed him down a whole lot. Died in his sleep, and everybody showed up.
Unbelievable.
Pay their respects. Yeah.
Well, that's where I want to bring people back to that.
Totally. I completely hear you.
Where you're a selfless person, you care about others, and it comes back and rewards you.
It comes back. Yeah. He was very, very loved. Everybody loved him. You know what's really crazy? He had this barbecue smokehouse he built with cinder block. He built a cinder block barbecue pit. So built a fire. It was kind of an L-shaped cinder block pit where you'd build the fire in the short part of the L, and then the long part of the L had all these grates inside with these metal lids that he welded himself, that had a rope that went to a pulley in the ceiling that had a cement block on the other side for counterbalance. And he would lay hams in there, and the smokestack was on the far end of the L. So when you built the fire, the smoke had to travel through all these hams to get out the smokestack.
Wow.
And we would sit there all night long and watch the thermostat, because he wanted the thermostat to stay within like 10 or 15 degrees to keep the heat consistent. And it took about 12 hours to cook all these hams. He cooked like 35 hams at a time. It was huge. And he would do it for the community. So every Christmas Eve or somewhere around Christmas Eve, right before Thanksgiving, right before Easter, 4th of July, he did this, and he'd just take orders from everybody, and he wouldn't charge, and he wasn't making money off of it. You just pay for your ham. So if your ham cost him $15, he charged you $15, and Granny would make a big batch of barbecue sauce, and you'd get a big jar, mason jar of barbecue sauce, and a ham that he would chop for you if you wanted, and make pulled pork, or he'd just give you the whole smoked ham. So I have some cousins, some boy cousins, and they were texting with me right before Thanksgiving, and they were in his smokehouse smoking hams for the community.
Oh, cool. You still have the house?
Yep. They were doing the same thing he did my whole life.
Wow.
They were doing it I think they were smoking like 25 hams that night for whoever wanted them to come pick them up. We'll have a ham for you. And that's who I came from. That's who I am.
Wow.
And that's who I think we should all strive to be in your own way, in your own capacity. Do you need something? Do you need something? I'm doing this already. Can I do it for you while I'm doing it? That's what they wanted to smoke hams for themselves. May as well do it for everybody that know, you know?
Yeah.
And I was so proud that they grew up smoking with Pop, and then they just picked it up and carried it on.
Amazing.
You know?
What a tradition.
It is really cool. I was so jealous. I would love to have one of those smoked hams, because I can't get it out here from Georgia.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool. Those memories and those stories. And, you know, we'd sit up all night with Pop and eat cheese and crackers and peanut butter and crackers and keep the fire going, freezing our butt off when it was Christmas in there. And, you know, I'd love to get on the cement block and pull that big metal door open, because it took my whole body weight to get that big lead door, or whatever it is, metal door open, and shut it for him, and just listen to him talk. We play checkers, stay up all night. It was really fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a family you've come from.
I did come from a pretty
And what a great family you've built.
I tried to replicate as much of it as I could. We do a lot of this stuff with my Girl Scout troop, like not smoking hams, obviously, but trying to create that community. Kathy and Kirsten and I it was really important to us that we created an environment these girls could come back to and be totally safe. Like no judgment, no shitty girl behavior, which happens inevitably with teenage girls. And any kid that couldn't do that has weeded themselves out. All kids are good kids, but you know, sometimes in high school, you're a shitty kid because you're trying to figure out who you are, not because you're really shitty, but just because you're just trying to figure out who you are.
Sure. Everybody makes mistakes.
That environment is directly drawn from how I grew up. For me, I don't know where Kathy or Kirsten draw it from for them, but for me, it's directly from Aunt Carol, my dad, his brother Steve, Diane, who's passed away, and my grandparents. And that's just how we were. And I think I cherish it. And I want to make sure I give my kids as much of it as I can.
Oh, you did. And I love that you guys found a great community in LA. That's not easy.
This is the best community ever. We love it here.
Yeah.
We love it. We got so lucky.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a hard time finding a community in the South Bay. And I think it'll be easier as we start to get to know our daughter's parents,
It will.
And I think Palos Verdes, so far, in Palos Verdes, we've met a lot of really good people. But yeah, it's just not like Michigan.
Well, no. Well,
Michigan,
no.
I got nobody I can drink a beer with in my garage.
Yeah.
I just, I just need more of that. So
you'll find them.
Yeah.
Once you get into elementary school, the pool widens.
Yeah.
Preschools are usually pretty small. Once you get into an elementary school, it gets a little bigger pool, and you'll find somebody. Or that's been our experience, and that's been the experience of a lot of people we know.
Yeah.
Is once you get in elementary school, people start hanging out. But we could talk here forever. We would be here forever, Jeff.
I know. Last question. You're an only child, but if you could have had a brother or sister, what would you have thought you would have liked or got along with better?
A brother.
A brother. Just kind of rough and tumble. But there's good things to being two girls, like because I've got two girls now. Yeah. My wife thought for sure it was a boy, so she had my hopes up. It's a boy. I can feel it. Don't worry about it. It's a boy. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have my little boy.
Yeah.
All this stuff. All of a sudden, the results came back. It's a girl, and I was like, I'm gonna be really cute with two little cute girls in my hands. And Jazz made the great point that sisters have such a great bond.
Yeah, I think
this
so.
Is probably the strongest of all sibling bonds is sisters.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. I watched my two kids, and I think it's really great they have each other. So maybe I would have liked a girl, but as a child, I was not very girly. Yeah. I had a cousin who was very girly, and I would play with her some. But I'd always go find her brother.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I always ended up with the boys. I was always dirty. I was always, skint up, splinters everywhere. I didn't have time for that frilly girly stuff as much. I did. I played dolls and Barbies. And at a certain point, I was like, I need my Matchbox cars. Where's my Matchbox cars? I got to bury something and dig it up.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I often say, as much as I would have liked to have had a sibling, I think it was good that I didn't.
Yeah.
I think it was good that I didn't.
Well, I love those stories too. I love those stories of only children that were like, this really worked out for me.
Yeah. I think it's better. I think my childhood would have, I'm made of a certain metal that I'm afraid if I had a sibling that was maybe built more sensitive and vulnerable like my dad, they wouldn't have made it through. I think that's what it is. Because it took a lot of effort for me to get through my childhood. My dad and all his family was wonderful, but I didn't live with them. I lived with my mom. And that wasn't so great.
Yeah.
So I often think if I'd had a sibling, they wouldn't have made it. Or I would have spent my time taking care of them. So.
It was great that you had a big softy dad.
Oh, he's the best.
Because he just, you just turned a great daughter, turned out a great daughter.
He was the best. He really still is the best. I said this a couple times on a few episodes recently, but I just realized how important it was for me to be who I am, that he liked me, that he enjoyed my company.
That made you like yourself.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
Yeah. It was a big discovery for me. And I discovered it like a week and a half ago. And I told my dad, discovered it while I was talking to him on the phone and told him. And he got real emotional about it. He got real kind of crackly voicey about it.
You bringing out emotions in everybody.
Yeah, that was my dad. He's the best.
I love it. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. All the best with this venture. I am so happy for you. I'm happy to participate and put some stories on. It'd be great. I'd be happy to do it.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'll do it. That'd be fun.
I appreciate it. Now, am I going to hear that beautiful song with the roller skates and the key?
You should when it starts.
I love it. I love that tune.
I do too.
It's a great tune. How'd you select that? I mean, was that all, you chose between a bunch of tunes, or you just knew right away?
No, when I started this podcast, Halston was already working for Bert, and we were talking about having like a song for the beginning. I was like, I can't get this song out of my head because this is what I want. Like, I've got a roller skate, you've got a key. Together, we go skate, right? So I couldn't get it out of my head. And I was like, tell me if this is like a weird, goofy song. And then he played it and he was like, no, I actually think that's perfect. So I was like, well, let's try it. If we hate it, we'll change it.
It's perfect.
Because it is what I felt like. I was like, well, my purpose is we talk to each other and together we learn something, right? We figure something out. Or together we have fun. Or together we have a good conversation. So I got a brand new pair of roller skates. You got a brand new key is exactly what that is.
Perfect.
Right? So
and I love it. It's good. I love, listening to all your podcasts. I always, when that music comes on, I know Leanne's coming. It just puts you in the right mood.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I love that song too. I think it's a cool song.
Yeah.
It's a great little folk song.
Okay, I'll let you get back to
I
your
know.
holiday
Thank
planning.
you,
You
Jeff.
must have a million things to do this week.
I'm busy, but aren't we all?
Yeah.
It
It's
was
gonna be
so
a good
nice to
week.
talk to you. So nice
Thanks
to
for
talk
bringing
to
me
you.
on during
I'm
the
happy to
holidays. I
have
appreciate
you.
it.
Happy to have you.
Okay.
Come back anytime.
Oh.
We'll do a follow-up
Oh,
sometime.
that'd be amazing.
Let's
Thank you,
do it.
Leanne.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.